Download their app today and use promo code THEGAME. D-Mase is on dad duty today. So just myself, Caroline Fenton, and Willy Donick hanging out with you. But a very warm welcome to our, it's weird to say new team member because it's not really a new team member. But welcome to Joe Dubin, who is back in the fold on a daily basis. The Chase McCabe and Joe Dubin Show. So happy to have you on board, Joe. Willy, how we doing?
I am doing well. Yes, we've reacquired Joe. That brings back memories. The beginning of the game was 2011, and Chase, a couple months into it, became an intern, and now you see where he is today.
Suit.
Joe and I did the afternoon show a couple of months into the game, beginnings.
Right.
So we did the show for a while, and Joe then rotated to the morning show. So we've had Joe before, so it's a great addition. It reminds me of like Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs was the coach or Dick Vermeil. Remember Dick Vermeil was the coach for a long time. Joe Gibbs a long time, and they took a break for a while, did their thing somewhere else, and then they came back. So that's Joe is the new Dick Vermeil.
You can always find your way back home.
Yeah, you can always find your way back.
We'll always
that's a
be
song.
here. It
Jefferson
is.
Starship. Good song.
So welcome aboard, Joe. And we've got a full slate of college football starting yesterday. 5 straight days of college football play. We are back. It feels great to be back within the fold of the college football season, NFL starting next week. We will have Trey Wallace join us in 30 minutes. We'll get his thoughts on the Vols this season, his thoughts on the SEC as a whole this season. Florida just absolutely stinking up the bed at Utah last night, so we'll get all of Trey Wallace's thoughts there. But Willy, before we get into the nitty-gritty of things, before we get into what my biggest question for Tennessee football is this season, I have to let you know that I've recruited 2 new people into the dark side.
It is okay. Tell me where you're going with this.
The cord-cutting side.
Oh, okay. So first of all, tell me what happened last night while you were watching the game.
Let me just say that this was, I think, just malpractice on a different level by Spectrum. So Charter, Spectrum, cable, Wi-Fi, phone service. My parents have Spectrum as their cable. So Spectrum couldn't get a deal done with Disney. So last night, in the middle of the second quarter of the Florida-Utah game, so, different point in whatever game that you were watching, but second quarter of the Florida-Utah game, all the Spectrum's Disney channels. So ESPN, ESPN2, SEC Network, ACC Network, all the Disney channels blacked out just in the middle of the game. And I get a phone call from my dad with expletive, yelling, what's going on, freaking out. So in the middle of these games, on the not the very first day of the college football season, we had week 0, but what felt like the real start of college football with big games, fun matchups, it just completely blacks out nationwide. So that is cable malpractice on another level. So if in the midst of a breakdown from St. Louis, Missouri household, I signed my parents up for YouTube TV. So they are now officially on hashtag Team Cord Cutter. But between last night and the Titans' first preseason game against Chicago, hashtag Team Cord Cutter is winning. And the issues that you and D-Mase had trying to get that first Titans preseason game.
Well, the cord cutter, like if you were a cord cutter, how did you watch the Titans games on Channel 2? Like
YouTube TV.
YouTube TV gets Channel 2?
It does.
Okay.
Because those games are not blacked out.
But it is a shell game, right, with all of this stuff. Like last night, I didn't have a problem. I was flipping around. I watched a lot of games. The best game, to me, was the Dodgers-Braves, which I'm a baseball fan. I really enjoyed that one. The duel for the MVP between Mookie Betts and Ronald Acuna, that was an unbelievable show put on by both of them. Great game. Probably the 2 best teams in baseball that probably will play, that you think have a chance to play again at the LCS.
Absolutely.
I'm boycotting baseball because my team sucks.
Well, my team does too, but I got to have my baseball fan. And Mookie, Nashville guy, I'm rooting for him. Chase is mad because I think he should be the MVP over Acuna.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I don't know about that one.
Take a look at the analytics.
Well, yes.
Willie's anti-Braves agenda.
30-60, Willy. 30-60. Acuna.
But Mookie has been look at the numbers.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable what he's
yeah.
doing. Plus, oh by the way, just cruises over and plays second base anytime you need him to play second.
He's
which
a
is
natural
not easy to do.
infielder. Did you know that?
Yeah, he's a Gold Glove, second base and outfield.
Yeah.
which is unheard of. Anyway, that aside, I feel like it's always a shell game. There's always going to be some games that something is going to happen with. Like there's coming attractions I know with other channels and re-upping with Comcast or re-upping with DirecTV or in this case Spectrum. I don't know how long it's going to take. This Next Star thing with Channel 2. I still don't get Channel 2. When it's time for a big college football game to be on Channel 2 or something, I don't know what I'm going to do. So it seems like, though, no matter what you do, you're going to get stuck without something, right? Unless you just pay for everything. So if you are only a cord cutter, what do you not get? Or how many services do you have to get everything?
I've never felt like I was in a position where I couldn't watch what I wanted to watch. Because I have YouTube TV, Netflix, HBO, and Paramount Plus. So between those, and like, you know, HBO and Netflix, those are more so just fun things to watch on the side, not live games. But in terms of live games, I think the only time that I've come across things that I couldn't watch is either Preds games or baseball games. And that's more so with league blackouts than, you know, services. So I would need to get a Bally subscription in order to watch all of the baseball and Preds games that I would want.
So how did you watch the Predators? If you have YouTube, because I hear from a lot of YouTube TV people that the Bally teams are not on YouTube. I
had Bally during the Preds season, and then I just canceled it afterwards, and then I'll probably just do the same thing for this season. Just get Bally and then cancel it. But Bally's steep.
Well, that is really a lot of people ask about the financial issues of Bally as a whole, and that is at the center of it. There's so many more people cord cutting because that's the direction it's going. That all of the not just Bally, really all of the regional networks, whether you're watching, I don't know, they're called different things. If it's not Bally, it could be this or that. They all have to battle that. There's so many more people that are doing it, and they have to make a deal with all these other ones. But the direct-to-consumer app is really, to me, the wave of the future, but it's got to be cost-effective, and that's, I think, what a lot of people are trying to come to grips with now is, do I pay direct fee, which is a little bit more, just to watch my team? And that's the future, I think. Yeah. But we have to strike the balance of what people are willing to pay and what's cost effective for the business. Like you got to pay the bills. Right.
Exactly. And that's the tough thing. But for right now, after the Spectrum debacle last night.
Oh man, that's the worst. It's like when a storm rolls through.
Yeah.
If you have a satellite dish, that is so bad. And you can't get your games. That is the worst feeling when you really want to watch a game. Like last night, none of my teams were really in action, but luckily for you, LSU wasn't playing.
Well, I could watch because I have YouTube TV. My parents at home.
Well, what game did they really want to watch? Were they
Florida, Utah, and Missouri, South Dakota?
Missouri, South Dakota. Okay.
My dad, for some reason, has a bee in his bonnet about the Missouri Tigers and their quarterback situation this year. Anything that affects the Vols is of utmost priority to Scott Fenton.
Okay.
And he wanted to watch those games. And he's just a college football fan. They wanted to watch the games. So they tried to do a workaround and watch the games on the ESPN app. But you have to have a cable login to watch the ESPN app. And with a charter cable login, you can't watch the games on the ESPN app. So we found a workaround. Now have YouTube TV. And I think they're feeling kind of hip now with YouTube TV. Kind of feeling with the times a little bit, maybe.
Are they going away totally from cable?
This is just a trial run.
Okay.
We will see how long they stick with YouTube TV, because the plan is to shop around cable providers, see what works best, most cost effective, so on and so forth. But they are YouTube TVers for the time being.
Interesting. I still think, and look, I haven't sat down and done all of the math. I think because there's so many, sometimes it is more convenient just to stay plugged in.
I'm with you, Willie. I'm still plugged in. I know I'm around the same age as Caroline. I'm still plugged in.
I'm surprised. That's an upset for your demographic, I would say.
Listen.
For me, this is what I've always done for so long. But I do see that I get all the games. Like I do have to step out every now and then to get an odd game. But I would say 90% of the games I would like to watch, I just already have. And that is, I pay for it, but I wonder what would be the cost if I wanted to get the exact equivalent from unplugging and getting all of these other things that I have to get in order to get all the games.
And it's a good question of what all do you need to get. And I think it's also dependent on your teams and the games that you want to watch. Because now with the NFL switching some playoff games to Peacock, I'll have to add Peacock into my repertoire. And then at the end of the day, I may just be paying what I would be paying for cable, getting all of those things. It's at this point, if you're bundling streaming services, now you're just getting cable anyway. But at the end of the day, as long as you get what you want and you get what you need to watch or want to watch, that's all that matters, whatever the path is and whatever the price tag is for it. Because, for my parents, as far as they're concerned, my parents are sports fans. They want to watch games. ESPN and SEC Network are probably permanently on in the TV. So if they're not getting that, they're going to go wherever they can get that. But a fun night of college football games. Also, a fun baseball game as well for Willy and Chase and college football hater Jared Stillman. But we will chat with Trey Wallace in 15 minutes. We'll get his thoughts on the Tennessee Vols, expectations for the team this year, his thoughts on the Southeastern Conference as a whole. But coming up next, I want to get into what I think, in my opinion, for me, is the biggest, most pressing question for the Tennessee Volunteers this year. Can Joe Milton do what Hendon Hooker did? And we'll address that question on the other side. And your thoughts as well. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase is brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
All the big plays.
Rebound, try out in front, and Saros covers it up.
All the big stories.
Andrew Burnett reportedly hired as the next head coach of the Predators.
All in one place. We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3.
Checkered flag is in the air.
Comparing goalies to running backs.
46-27 Vanderbilt.
Does this group of players need more?
The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey, it's Jared from my friends at Hiller. It's about to start getting cooler, and it's time to start thinking about your heating system. You do not want to experience breakdowns when that first temperature drop happens, so it's time to get your heating tune-up taken care of. Luckily, happy half-off month at Hiller. Tune-ups are 50% off. This month, Hiller is making it easier than ever to tackle necessary home replacements by giving you 50% off select add-on items. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Honey, what's an 8-letter word for difficult to explain?
When we planned on retiring, we never planned on Medicare being so confusing.
What's a 6-letter word for special skills or knowledge?
Fortunately, Farm Bureau Health Plans is an expert on all things Medicare. With 75 years of helping Tennesseans, they helped us understand our Medicare options.
Why are these things so complicated?
Talk to your local representative or visit fbhp.com. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Plan on us.
Saturday on Fox 17.
Can Coach Prime, Deion Sanders change everything? Reinvent an entire Colorado Buffaloes team in an offseason.
We bring in the heat.
Can a one-win team upset a Big 12 powerhouse?
Baby, you best believe.
Give Gus Johnson and Joe Klatt something to yell about.
Wow.
Can one man change everything? We're about to find out. Colorado versus TCU.
Saturday, watch the big noon kickoff at 9, Colorado and TCU at 11 on Fox 17.
The Sam Pugh Memorial Race at Duck River Raceway Park, Sunday, September 3rd with super late models in action. Duck River Raceway Park is just 10 minutes from Henry Horton State Park and less than an hour from Nashville. Come to Duck River Raceway Park for the Sam Pugh Memorial Race on Sunday, September 3rd. Grandstands open at 4 and drivers meeting at 5. Come enjoy good food, good people, and great racing. At this family-friendly event, Sunday, September 3rd. Get your tickets at the gate and learn more at duckriverracewaypark.com or on their Facebook page.
Anyone want to tell me what happened?
Did you miss any of today's show?
It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry.
Subscribe to the Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, or by going to thegamenashville.com.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
Having some fun in the midday.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Hey, tune in to 102.5 and 106.3 The Game tomorrow for Vanderbilt football. The Commodores will kick off at 6 p.m. at home against Alabama A&M with pregame beginning at 4:30 p.m. You can hear all the coverage on 102.5 The Game app and at theGameNashville.com. So the Vols open up their season in town at Nissan Stadium tomorrow at 11 a.m., which, if we could just boycott 11 a.m. kickoffs forever, I would greatly appreciate that, but I digress. The Vols open up their season tomorrow against Virginia at Nissan Stadium. And I know that Tennessee fans are entering this season riding a high of last year, as they should. An 11-2 season. They were number one overall team in the country, at least for a week. There was college football playoff conversation around Tennessee. I mean, you could make the argument that Tennessee was one of the most electric and exciting teams to watch in college football last year. And that was something that that Tennessee fans haven't had in a very long time. Exciting games is something that Tennessee fans, I think, have been craving for quite some time. So going into this season, I mean, the hype should be high. The excitement should be at not an all-time high, but higher than it has been maybe in a few years. So I don't blame Tennessee fans in the slightest for being, encouraged for what this team could offer, for being excited about the potential that this Tennessee team can have. But I think that we also need to look at it through a more realistic lens. Like Joe Rexrode has a great article in The Athletic about expectations that Tennessee fans might have for this Tennessee team. That finally they felt what a successful season is like, and now they want more, as any fan base would want after an 11-2 successful season, beating Alabama for the first time in 15, 16 years, however long it had been. But you also got a new quarterback. You lost your best offensive lineman. You lost your two leading receivers. So can Joe Milton do what Hendon Hooker can do, is my question. Can Joe Milton pick up where Hendon Hooker left off and lead Tennessee not to just as good of a season as they had last year, but an even better season than they had last year? Was last year for the Tennessee Vols lightning in a bottle, or was it just a preview of what's to come? And I kind of struggle with this sometimes because part of me thinks, well, with the Josh Heupel system, you're always going to be good. Like, you're always going to put up a whole bunch of points with the Josh Heupel system. And then the other side of me thinks, well, Hendon Hooker was also a really good quarterback. And yeah, it was in a system that's advantageous to a quarterback, but Hendon Hooker executed it almost flawlessly. Can Joe Milton do that?
I don't think it's lightning in a bottle. I do think that Tennessee will look good again in the things that they do well. I think from the very start, he has put a stamp and an identity on what you're going to face. You know, when you face Tennessee, it is going to be one heck of a challenge to try to slow them down. And it's not easy to do. I think Milton is a slight step down from Hendon Hooker. I'll be surprised if he is as efficient as Hooker is, but he's older. He's been there for a long time in their system. He has a very good feel of what to do. If he has a great year, that's going to go a long way for sure. Just like I think Hooker just had a great year, and when your quarterback has a great year in college football, that usually means a good season for you. The thing that I'm really watching for this year is now that teams have seen Heupel for a little time, they've had a chance to really go through it. He's been going through the league a couple times. What have defenses learned about how to try to slow that offense down and maybe find ways to exploit what happens? Because as we've always said, when you play that fast break kind of offense and you get in a high possession game, there are things that puts pressure on a defense. It makes it pretty tough to play defense on a team like that. So that's what I'm really looking for, is can Heupel continue to evolve and come up with wrinkles to where it's not the same thing every year. I'm sure he's had to do that before, but when you're new in a league, and I used, just from my frame of reference, when Rick Pitino and then Nolan Richardson came in the SEC, man, that was stuff. They were playing with a full court press, the 40 minutes of hell. That was very difficult the first couple times you see it, like especially when you played in their place. I mean, it was like a hornet's nest. It took over, and it was hard to prepare for, hard to deal with. But once you did it a few times, it got a little bit easier. So I wonder what that dynamic's going to look like this year for Tennessee.
And that's the interesting thing is once you've got that on tape, once there's going to be one defensive coordinator out there, and I don't know who it's going to be, that finds some way to stop that offense. Because as unstoppable as that offense really does look, I mean, the greatest defensive mind in college football, Nick Saban, even his defenders looked awfully confused every time. Even, 2 years ago when Alabama beat Tennessee, even that year, their defense looked confused. And then Tennessee turns around the next year, and Josh Heupel, frankly, just outcoached Nick Saban. I mean, those are very impressive things to confuse a defensive mind like Nick Saban like that. So as unstoppable as sometimes that offense looks, there's going to be someone somewhere that finds the hitch in that offensive system and finds a way to stop it. An offensive system that can make, a 3-star recruit look like a 5-star recruit. That can make a guy that maybe was a 4th-round projected pick look like a 1st-round projected pick. I mean, it elevates the talent in every single member of that offense. But I do wonder, when is the day that it comes, if and when does the day come, that someone finds a way to stop it, and how does Josh Heupel adjust to that? Because I do think that Josh Heupel is a wonderful tactician and does a really good job of adjusting on the fly. If something's not working, he fixes it.
Yeah, and I think the offense, he's got a very good understanding of what's there. If the defense takes away one thing, here's what's open. Can we exploit that? I also want to see how they handle higher expectations. It was a great ride last year, and they're certainly not going to sneak up on anybody this year. There's higher expectations from the fan base. And I'm not saying that they can't handle it. I'm saying that's a challenge. And I have seen many a Tennessee team get into this because the fan base is so passionate and they want to win so bad. They're hungry, and they're expecting more now. And so if you hit a little bit of adversity, if you lose a game or you don't play well in a game that you're supposed to look good in, people let you know about it. You have to be able to deal with that. And so I don't think Heupel has really been through that fire yet, but I think he's done about as well as you can possibly do to set the table. But I think if you look back, there was a time where Butch Jones was pretty popular. He was going in the right direction for a while.
Brick by brick, baby.
And then he had a brick wall.
The bricks crumbled.
There was, and he didn't handle himself very well. That was where I think it started to get away from him. Is he couldn't handle the heat when it started to surround him. I think even Pruitt, he got the contract extension. He got to a point where they were winning and winning impressively against the mid to lower tier of the league. It looked like it was good. But when things got rough, that's when he didn't handle himself very well in that environment. And you're in the fishbowl there. It's a pretty big size city. It's an enormous fan base. Everybody in that city is focusing on one thing, and it's not always easy to go through it when things aren't going well. But so Heupel so far, I think, has handled himself really, really well. So I wonder, as the stakes get higher, what does that look like?
And that is one thing that I want to send a message to Tennessee fans, and it's really to every college football fan out there whose team maybe overachieved last year, had an exciting season last year. Now the expectations have raised. First of all, raised expectations are natural. That's going to happen. But success in college football, and specifically in the most competitive league in college football in the SEC, success is not linear. Just ask Jimbo Fisher. I mean, he's had 10-2 years at Texas A&M. They just narrowly missed the college football playoff in 2020, and they went 5-7 last year. And had his buyout not been so astronomical, I don't know if Jimbo Fisher still would have been at Texas A&M this year. Like, it is hard to win.
What's happening in Gainesville right now? What are the shows like that down there, or like ours? What are those shows like in Gainesville today? Probably not very pretty.
Probably not pretty after what we saw from Florida last night.
And that's an example. Everybody's got their own little. What separates an LSU fan base from a Tennessee, from a Florida. Florida's got, to me, they are, and I say this having grown up in Florida, they're like the cockiest. I think it's like I don't understand. You can't they don't understand how good everybody else is.
Something I've noticed, really.
They don't really. They don't comprehend that they aren't supposed to win, especially in football.
Yeah.
And even like sports that they don't follow very closely, they still like, oh, we're Florida. We should win. There's this arrogance about them. So they do not tolerate games like last night where they not only lost, but they got beat bad.
And they shouldn't tolerate games
They were
like that.
disorganized. They're disorganized. But Utah is a really good program. That was a great college atmosphere. That's a tough place to win. Florida had not played a true road game out of league.
Non-conference, yeah.
In 30-something years, 32 years, they had not gone out of state to play a road game. And I understand why, because you're playing Florida State every other year.
Right.
You play Miami a lot. But that's an unusual trip for them, and they got smoked. But all that to say, the seat gets hot so quick in this league. You can be sailing along and be that, hey, I love our guy, our coach is doing it, and all of a sudden that fan base could start really creating doubts. It's a tough environment to swim in sometimes, and you have to have thick skin. You have to know how you handle yourself during those tough times because everybody's going to have the tough times.
It happens. Like, it's hard. It is really hard to win. I mean, Nick Saban went 10-2 last year, and now Alabama fans are all up in arms and, might set the city on fire if they lose one more game. And that's Nick freaking Saban.
They lost to Nick Saban lost to Louisiana Monroe his first year. When he was the coach at LSU, I think it was his first year, they lost to UAB, coached by Watson Brown. So he's been through the fires. So I don't care how great of a coach you are, you're going to have some rough Saturdays for sure.
And I don't know if that's what's going to happen for Tennessee.
No, I don't know either.
I think Tennessee's going to be a good football team this season.
They might just sail right along again. They had great momentum last year. It was really something to watch because you just felt they could feel it. The fan base was feeling it, and they hadn't had that feeling in a long time, and so they want to keep it. And so that's what's tough is when you have a setback, whenever that is, and maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year, based on where the expectation level is. That's when you have to be able to handle yourself.
It was fun last year, and the SEC, college football, is more fun when teams like Tennessee are good. It's more fun when teams like Florida are good, like these perennial college football programs that have had a lot of success and a lot of support and massive fan bases, Texas even included. Like, Texas fans drive me absolutely insane, but the sport is more fun when Texas and Tennessee and Florida and teams like that, USC, when those teams are good.
It's also fun when they lose.
It's also, super fun when they lose, too. It's more fun when they lose and they're good.
That's true. And I think what people want to see, this is what college football lacks a lot, is variety, right? And so within the powerhouses, there's always going to be a cycle of teams that we just mentioned that are on an uptick, and they're fun, they're exciting. And then there's going to be another group that want to be there, have been there before, Tennessee being one of them, that are fighting to get back in there. And some that are in a struggle right now. And like Florida, that have been there and like, what's going on? Why can't we get back to where we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? There's always that group. And then what it lacks to me is you love to have that new blood that's never been there before. That's a good college football season.
Like a Cincinnati.
Yeah, somebody like that. Boise State for a while, fighting to get in there. TCU would be in that for sure.
Right. And it's fun to have some parity in the sport. But that's overall my message to Tennessee fans is success is not linear. I still think Tennessee is going to be a really good team this year. But if at any point in the season you're not the number one overall team in the country, that doesn't mean that you're not still making progress or that it's not still an impressive season. But I want to continue the conversation coming up next because Joe wrote a great article in The Athletic, more so a column, about his perspective of Tennessee fans' expectations. Do Tennessee fans expect Josh Heupel to be the guy that not just gets them to the college football playoff, but wins them a national championship? We'll get into that coming up next. And your thoughts as well. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025-1063 The Game.
New home. New energy. Same Blue Raiders.
99 yards. Touchdown, Middle Tennessee.
every game for MTSU on 93.3 Classic Hits. Coach Rick Stockstill is poised to lead his team to yet another bowl appearance.
We're really excited about this opportunity.
Your home for the Blue Raiders is 93.3 Classic Hits and the Classic Hits app.
Don't miss a minute of football action while getting up close and personal to the future stars of the PGA Tour. Join Penn Entertainment on site at the Simmons Bank Open, promoting Penn Play and their sports online betting platform. Stop by their tent in the Arctic Tailgate Village during the tournament to learn more and have a chance to win some prizes and giveaways. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee. For problem gambling support, call Tennessee Redline 1-800-899-9789.
This is Nick Frazier here to tell you about my favorite sport booking casino, and that's BetUS.com. Football is back, and that means it's time to lay down your bets. BetUS is celebrating its 30th year of sport betting service with a special offer this football season. Up to 30 risk-free bets. It's called Bet Protect, and there's even more. BetUS.com offers the industry's biggest 125% sign-up bonus. Get Bet Protect and get started today by visiting BetUS.com or give them a call at 1-800-MY-BETUS. That's 1-800-692-3887 to learn more about their bonuses and special offers. BetUS.com. Sportbook Casino, where the game begins.
We're losing too many of our friends, neighbors, and loved ones to fentanyl poisoning. Nearly 75% of overdose deaths in Nashville involve fentanyl, but you can save a life with training and naloxone. STARS, Nashville's regional overdose prevention specialists, are here to teach you how to recognize and respond to an overdose and how you can save a life. Call 615-393-6980 or visit starsnashville.org. This project is funded under a grant contract with the State of Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services.
In St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida, fun in the sun goes way beyond the white sand beaches. Let's rock out at a waterfront concert at the Sound. Let's marvel at masterpieces of the Chihuly collection and make some flippered friends at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium. Let's pedal the 75-mile Pinellas Trail and stop at Florida's oldest microbrewery along the way. This fall, let's go for all the sun and none of the crowds. Let's shine. Plan your getaway at visitstpeteclearwater.com.
Vanderbilt football lives here.
This Saturday, it's Vandy and Alabama A&M at First Bank Stadium. Kickoff at 6. Pre-game coverage begins at 4:30.
Your home for the Commodores is 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey Nashville, it's Max Kellerman, and you're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Is it frustrating when people talk about the system stuff? Not just at the quarterback position, but in general, that the narrative's out there, well, they didn't play in a pro system. Does that frustrate you as an offense?
Man, 10 years ago, I think there was a trickle-down effect from the NFL to college. I think it's the exact opposite in today's landscape. Over the last 3 cycles or 3 drafts, we've had 5 wide receivers. I've had more wide receivers drafted in the last 3 years than any other college coach. I think that speaks to what we're doing, how we're developing those guys understanding, coverages, concepts, but also how to beat man coverage. That can be press, that can be off technique. That doesn't just happen by accident. So I think what we do does translate in how those guys have been developed.
There you go. That was Josh Heupel and how his system kind of translates into the NFL. And honestly, that's something that I still have a question about. And I think that Hendon Hooker and Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt are going to be kind of the guinea pigs. Is for our general managers across the league to look at that and say, okay, is that the kind of system? And did what we see in Knoxville translate into the league? Or are they more so just products of the system? That's something that D-Mase has talked a lot about with Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt, is he doesn't think that Jalen Hyatt's going to be a very good NFL receiver. He likes Cedric Tillman more because he shows more NFL kind of skills, that he can run better routes versus Jalen Hyatt, who, he can outsmoke you, but he's just going to run straight down the field, and Josh Heupel's offense is going to scheme him open, and it's just into the arms of Jalen Hyatt and into the end zone.
Right, and the variable is because Josh Heupel is trying to get a brand out there that, hey, if you're a wide receiver and you come here,
you're going to put numbers
You're going to put up big numbers, it's going to be fun, and you're going to get drafted. It's not always the coaches, I shouldn't say always, it's not really at all a college coach's responsibility to develop you as an NFL receiver. Now,
it's their job to win.
It's their job to win. Some college coaches like to sell that look, we're playing an NFL system. You're going to learn what it takes to do well in the NFL if you come here. That's an angle for recruiting. I don't think that's necessarily the case at Tennessee. It's more about you're going to put up amazing numbers. You're going to shine. And so then it's up to – I'm not saying they're not teaching anything about the NFL, but as Derek's point is that you can their scheme is so unique. The scheme is different when you go to the NFL. It's no different than Malik Willis going from Liberty to the Titans. Completely different game that he's playing.
Yeah.
So it's up to each individual to make those adjustments, but that's not on Josh Heupel or Hugh Freeze, right? That they're getting paid to win at the college level. They have to do what they have to do.
Right, and it's his job to win games.
Yeah, so I'm curious how that brand continues because, like you said, it would be nice for Tennessee. For Heupel, it's a home run. How many pitchers do you think Tim Corbin has gotten from all over the country? Because he can go look and say, hey, look at David Price, look at Sonny Gray, look at Mike Minor, and just go down the list of all the high first-round picks that they've developed that stayed healthy, won big at Vanderbilt, and are winning big at the college level. It's a brand. And so I think I feel like Josh Heupel's trying to do that with wide receivers at Tennessee. It's good if you can do it, for sure.
Absolutely. And so when we talk about, Tennessee fans' expectations, we all know that Tennessee fans are going to have high expectations. And Joe Rexrode broke it down. And he said, hey, if the Vols go 9-3 this year, in the context of what they've done in the last 10 to 15 seasons, that's a good year. But Tennessee fans are undoubtedly going to be probably a little bit upset and a little bit disappointed with that. But when you talk about the long-term outlook of Josh Heupel's tenure at Tennessee, can he be the guy that gets Tennessee to the college football playoff? I think, yeah. Because in an expanded 12-team playoff, there's room for 3, maybe even 4 SEC teams. And it's not crazy to think that Tennessee is going to be 3 or 4 of the top 10 teams in the SEC. They were this past season. So I do think, yeah, Josh Heupel can get this team to the college football playoff.
Who's joining the party? So top 3 or top 4 in a 14-team league. Now, with Oklahoma and Texas, you got to be top 3, top 4 in a 16-team league. So the formula is different.
Right.
I think 3 is a given, don't you? Every year, if it's a 12-team playoff, the SEC will have
3's
minimum
basically
3.
a given. It feels like it.
I
think
would
2
think so.
is absolutely a given. 3 probably.
I would be stunned if they ever got less than 3, especially with the size of the league and the way that the shape is shifting, which I think we're going to talk about a little later. Like it's not a Power 5 anymore,
right?
Or it won't be,
right?
The Pac-12 is gone, so it's all new. But I think 4 is reasonable out of 12. So it's basically your champion, and then 3 at large. That's very doable, I think, with the power of this league. But I'm just saying it sounds like there's a lot of spots there. It still is going to be a dogfight because of all these teams, like you said in the last segment, that it's their expectation to be top 4 in the league.
But you lose 2 games, you're in the 12-team playoff. Now that seems like a foreign concept to lose 2 games and get to the college football playoff. You go 10-2 in a league like the SEC, you're in. So yes,
fair.
Josh Heupel can get them to the college football playoff. I don't think Josh Heupel can win a national championship at Tennessee. And it's for a couple of reasons. One, when reading Joe's article, there's one, he said defensive coaches who have achieved a lot in the sport have talked about how difficult it is to field a great defense when sharing a locker room with that offense. Now, I don't know who said that. I don't know the ins and outs of exactly why that is. But I don't think that you can win a national title in today's college football without also having a great defense. One thing about Tennessee is they'll put up 50 points. They might give up 48 in the meantime, but they're going to put up 50 points. When you go up against the Georgias or the Michigans or the Ohio States of the world, they also can put up points. And their defense is going to be better than any other defense that you probably play in the regular season. And I know that Tennessee plays Georgia in the regular season, but look at what Tennessee looked like against Georgia this past season. They were just simply overmatched. Georgia was just more physical. Georgia just had more talent. And Georgia's not the only team in the country that has a lot of talent. So if Tennessee can't get a better defense, and I think their defense will be better than it was last season, but if they can't get a defense that resembles as high-powered and good of an offense that they have, I don't think they can win a national championship. And I think that the recruiting outlook for Josh Heupel is going to be really interesting over the next 3, 4, 5 years. Because like we said, Hendon Hooker is going to be a guinea pig within the NFL. If Hendon Hooker doesn't turn out to be a starting NFL quarterback. I don't know how many 5-star quarterbacks in high school, 5-star recruits that want to get to the NFL, that want to be top 5, top 10 draft picks. I don't know how many of them are going to be seeking out a Josh Heupel offense rather than maybe some other schools or other coaches or other programs that have pumped out more top 5, top 10, top 15 picks.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, too, you've got Milton this year, who is a pro prospect, who was trying to go the route of Hooker, the older, more seasoned college football quarterback who has been around a long, long time and ready to, with the maturity standpoint, hopefully from a developmental standpoint, of just dominating. Bo Nix, who started off, there's a lot of quarterbacks. We talked about this over the summer. There's a number of quarterbacks that probably had a grade of being an NFL draft pick, but it was a lower lower round grade. So they said, you know what? With NIL, I can make some money, and I'll just go back and get a year better and hopefully dominate, have a chance to win big. So Bo Nix is one of those guys. Milton's one of those guys. And how many times do we discuss it? Pro scouts, would you rather have a 21-year-old who dominates or a 24-year-old? I think there's a difference, right? But it doesn't mean you can't go to the NFL and do well just because you start a little bit later. But it's something that's the age gap is something that's a little different than it was before. So I'm curious, too, when Heupel starts getting these recruits. I think they got the one guy coming in next year. I forget his name. Yeah. So we'll see what happens when he's got a younger quarterback.
And that's what I'm excited
who
to
jumps
see.
in there.
And that's what someone in the text line says, we just got the number 1 high school quarterback, Caroline. I'm aware of that. But let's
so
let
we'll see
it
how
pan
he
out.
does. Yeah.
Let's let it pan
and
out.
And the pressure
of
that
3, 4,
kid,
5
the
years.
expectations he's going to have, and is he going to do it right away? All of that. But so there's the quarterback carousel with the transfers and the NIL is something everybody's going to have to deal with going down the road, especially at the bigger schools with the big money. That is that's a whole crazy thing. Joe's article is interesting, and maybe we talk about this on the other side, because he said, look, what if you went 9-3 this year? That would still be way better than what it was before Josh Heupel, and probably ahead of what you would have predicted when the day he took the job. But because he's overachieved in the first 2 years, how much of a disappointment would it be for a Tennessee fan to have a 9-3?
I'd be disappointed. Maybe that's not fair. But I think about it like, LSU, for example. I think LSU has a lot of hype going into the season, just like Tennessee does. If we end up going 9-3, I'm going to be disappointed.
See, but you just hit the gist of the SEC and how, in my mind, that's a little bit irrational in the big picture. But I get it, because that's how people roll in the SEC, especially.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But there's going to be those 1 or 2 games each year where sometimes the ball bounces your way and sometimes it doesn't. They're just that good. All those teams are that good.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's why the shelf life of coaches in the SEC is incredibly short. And it's because sometimes the ball doesn't bounce your way, and sometimes it's just unfortunate circumstances. Like Alabama lost 2 incredibly narrow games last year, one against Tennessee on a walk-off field goal, and the last on a 2-point conversion in overtime. Yet Alabama fans were still upset and disappointed with the way that season ended last season. And it's because their expectations are 12-0 national championship or nothing. But the ball didn't bounce their way a couple of times, and they were disappointed. And that's the SEC, and those are the expectations. And if you want to be one of the best teams in the SEC, like Tennessee does, you need to have the expectation that you are the best team in the SEC. But let's get some of your phones on this coming up next, and we'll take a deeper dive into Joe's article. Again, Joe's column in The Athletic, and the headline is Vols fans may need to pump the brakes a bit on the Josh Heupel era. We'll get into your phones coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Green right, Fox 2 run, double catch. He takes you inside the huddle through the eyes of a quarterback.
Wide 85, tight.
Catch ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck every Tuesday at noon as he breaks down the big stories in the NFL.
Buffalo, maybe Miami.
And with the Tennessee Titans.
The Titans might be like, we're interested in a 1-year, $1 million contract.
Tim Hasselbeck is on Caroline, Willy, and D-Mace on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline Fenton here for our friends over at Superbook Sports. Football season is right around the corner, and now is the time to place your preseason bets with Superbook in Tennessee. Superbook is the most trusted name in Vegas, and now you can use the promo code Caroline to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they'll match your first bet up to $250 with promo code Caroline. Will Tennessee win the division this year? Who's your pick for MVP, and which team will win it all in February? Don't sit on the sidelines. Win money this season with Superbook Sports. Simply download the Superbook Tennessee app or visit Superbook.com to place your wager today. Football, a $250 first bet bonus, and the Caroline promo code will make you do your own touchdown dance this season with Superbook Sports. Visit Superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789.
Hey home buyers, TJ Anderson here. 6326 Patton Avenue is a new construction home in Nashville's Charlotte Park neighborhood. It offers 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and nearly 2,500 square feet. Features include a 2-car garage, custom walk-in shower, and a private backyard that's fully fenced. Text the number 2 to 615-420-2377 for pricing and info. Want your home on the radio? Google TJ Anderson Homes and see why we are referred by clients so often. TJ Anderson Homes at Benchmark Realty. Office number 615-432-2919.
This year, Boys and Girls Club of Middle Tennessee celebrates its 120th anniversary. Through time, BGCMT continues to evolve to enable all young people, especially those who need us most, to reach their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible leaders. Because of your continued support, BGCMT has remained strong and is committed to supporting our youth and solidifying our mission and culture in new exciting ways for 120 years. Visit bgcmt.org today.
312 Pizza Company is a proud sponsor of Nashville Sounds Baseball on 102.5 The Game.
Vanderbilt Commodore fans, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game, along with 94.9 The Fan, is your new home for broadcast of games and the Commodore Hour on Monday evenings. Catch all the action for football, men's and women's basketball, and baseball all season long. Go Doors!
Let's see. That one. Wait, I didn't see this one.
We apologize. When you have as many microbrews on tap as we do, we know it can be hard to make a decision. Don't worry. We're patient.
Wow. Let me see here.
Bar lines at the Omni Nashville Hotel. Incredible apps and salads, delectable burgers and wraps featuring local Tennessee whiskey and local brews on tap and live music 7 days a week. The decision is obvious. Bar lines at the Omni Nashville Hotel.
When it comes to Chase McCabe,
the Nashville Predators, the Titans, the NBA, college football, talk a little racing.
You get a little bit of everything.
But hey, you know what? We're getting it done.
Join Chase McCabe weekday mornings at 9 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hey, sign up for Silly Underdog Picks for your chance to win weekly prizes. Make your picks today at thegamenashville.com or the 102.5 The Game app as week 1 of college football kicks off this weekend. Silly Underdog Picks is presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket and Superbook Sports. Breaking down the expectations for the Tennessee Vols this season. I think Tennessee is going to be a good team. I don't think that Joe Milton is going to be as good as Hendon Hooker, but I think in the Josh Heupel system, he's going to put up points, he's going to put up big yardage, and they're going to win enough games. I don't think it's going to be enough to make the SEC championship, and I don't see a national championship, at least in the near future, for Josh Heupel. But let's get your thoughts on that. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Vincent is on the line with the Vols comment. What's up, Vincent?
Hello, guys. How you guys doing this Friday afternoon?
Good.
Caroline, I love you, but I have a slight rebuttal to your argument.
Let's hear it.
About Heupel's offense. If you guys remember when Urban Meyer came from Utah, everyone complained and said that his style of offense would not work in the SEC. We're a power football conference, and he will not succeed. And lo and behold, he won 2 national championships. And that's why I want everyone to understand. I do agree that the record for this year is most likely 10-2. I can see 9-3, but 9-3 is also assuming that Tennessee has another slip up like they did against South Carolina, and that's a fair assumption to make. But with that being said, you also have to give the fair assumption to Joe Milton that he's the different quarterback from what he displayed against Clemson. So you have to have that balanced out if you're going to have some kind of doubt surrounding the defense or surrounding the kind of numbers they're going to put up. You have to take all variables into account. But I sit back and listen, and appreciate listening to you guys.
Yeah, thanks for your call, Vincent. Josh Heupel's offense works in the SEC. It's a very good offense. That was never an argument that I made.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like he was watching Swamp Kings, which
yes.
you and I have as well, because that was a storyline in the first episode of Swamp Kings with Urban Meyer. Fair thing. And he was talking about how, they went from Chris Leak, who was more a drop-back quarterback, who they won a national championship with him basically being the starter. And then it went to another level when they had Tim Tebow in there for sure. But to me, those are all cycles. These are all things that come and go. Like there was a time where the SEC had a lot of teams running the wishbone.
Yeah.
And they were still dominating most of college football. They had great teams in that league in that era as well. These things all run in cycles. He's kind of got that new thing that is sort of next level. I would put it as a unique style that they're putting in. So that's, to me, the parallel of
it's
Urban Meyer.
Tempo, it's spread.
Yeah. So like you said, they're going to score.
Yeah.
The art form is, can you build a defense that is okay, and where at the end of the day you say you gave up 30, 32 points, but you did a good job. That's good. Good defense on that team might be 32 points, but key stops at key times because you're going to give up points when you score a lot of points. But it's coming out ahead against the best teams. If you're trying to go from being a fun team that's going to out-scheme a lot of teams, but to beat the best, you've got to do all those little things, and you do have to have a defense that can come up with a big stop at the key times. And that might be a little trickier to recruit to than a defense that gives up 17 points per game and shuts you down. He laid it out there. Here's a good text that we had that I think was a good one on the expectation level.
Yeah.
If Heupel wins 9 games this year, and that's Joe's argument, that they could win, they could be 9-3. They could lose to Alabama, Georgia, and then one other game. Pick one. He listed 3 or 4 possibilities. The fact is, in this league, there's going to be a week or two where maybe you don't play quite as well. Maybe the conditions are weird. You run up against another team that's having a great day, and you may or may not win the game. It's going to come down to a field goal. But you could lose one. To me, that would be another very good year. But as you said, that would be disappointing to take a step back from last year.
And it feels like a step back, even if it might not actually be a step
right.
back.
So here's a good text. If Heupel wins 9 games, that would be 27 in the first 3 seasons. Philip Fulmer had 26, and Fulmer inherited a far better program, which is absolutely true. He inherited a team that had been winning under Johnny Majors. Now, they play more games in the season than they did back when Fulmer started, but the point is well taken. I think he'd be right on pace. You'd have signed up for this on day one based on where the program was, the mess it was in, the probation, all of that stuff. 27 wins in the first 3 years?
Absolutely, they would have take that.
People would have done, cartwheels for sure. But that won't stop a sliver of the fan base from being disappointed if it's 9-3.
Right.
Right?
And that's fine. But my only qualm with that is, so what? So what if Heupel has more wins than Phil Fulmer in his first 3 seasons? That doesn't mean that he's going to win a national championship like Philip Fulmer did. Like, this is a different era of college football. We all know, if we can all agree, Josh Heupel is a really good coach. Josh Heupel was really impressive last season. Josh Heupel has given excitement and hope to a fan base that hasn't had hope in a long time. But it doesn't, just because you win that many games, it doesn't mean that you're going to win a national title. You can compare it to Philip Fulmer. You can compare it to, Johnny Majors. You can compare it to Nick Saban, however much you want. But I don't think that justifies the ends. I don't think that you're guaranteed anything, especially in this college football that's more competitive than it ever has been. Let's get one more quick thought in here from Greg in Columbia. What's up, Greg?
Hey, folks. How you folks doing?
Good.
I've been kind of listening to you for the last 20, 30 minutes. I'm an older guy, been a Tennessee fan all my life. I remember back when Tennessee had beaten Alabama 8 years in a row. And then we had some of the guys in the administration of UT were getting older. Some retired, some left. They hired people in there to take positions that really didn't benefit the Tennessee football program and who they hired. And let's bounce into a few years ago. We had a guy that everybody thought would change the world, Lane Kiffin, and then he ran off to the West. Guy Dooley, he didn't do a whole lot. Butch Jones was brought in. Same thing. Won a few good games. Last second pass defeats Georgia. Then we get a new athletic director who kind of knew the system. And let me go back and say, these guys that are in there now, they were not at a big, powerful, major school. But I did my book work on Josh Heupel.
Okay, what is your point about Josh Heupel and Danny White?
Well, they were two guys that knew what. First of all, the athletic director knew exactly what he needed to do to get Tennessee back in the limelight. They hired a guy. Everybody griped. I heard sports talk shows talking, "Oh man, what did they get Heupel for?" Blah blah blah. I did my research on him as the talk came up about him being hired.
So what about Tennessee in the future?
The what?
So what about Tennessee in the future?
Well, I'm getting to that if you give me a second.
Well, if we could get to that, that'd be great.
Oh, you're okay. Well, whatever.
Well, we're running up against the break, so you got to get to the point.
Yeah, just give us your take, and then we'll react.
It's the top of the hour. The guy was good where he was, didn't get a whole bunch of limelight because he wasn't on the big stage. Now he's on the big stage. He's a football mind, and I guarantee you they will win the national championship with him as the coach.
Okay, thank you for your call.
So he worked his way there.
All right.
And I don't know if everybody would agree with that the day Danny White, Josh Heupel came in. I think that was a game-changing hire for sure.
Uh-huh. Oh, absolutely.
Way better than people thought. My point is it takes time to build towards it. It doesn't happen overnight. Winning a national championship is different than getting to the point where you're winning 9-10 games.
Beating Alabama in 2022 doesn't mean that you're going to beat Alabama every single season. That's what Tennessee's going to have to do to win a national title. You know, having an exciting season, and that's what last season was, absolutely. But you couldn't beat Georgia. You have to get past Georgia in order to win a national title. Tennessee is not quite there yet. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're going to take a quick college football breather. We're going to go back to Willy's 10 questions from the Titans yesterday because there was one in particular that I was really marinating on over, last night and into this morning, and I want to get into that coming up next. It has to do with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, my expectations for those two, and is that going to be enough for the Titans to win the division? We'll get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a thought. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Hey, this is the Fat Jack, and it's finally the start of football season and a great time for you to ask yourself, how did last year go? If you were just guessing and you lost money betting on the games, now is the time to go to FatJackSports.com. Before you dig yourself a hole, you can start the season heading into profit. For $50 a week, you can make money betting the games. Go to FatJackSports.com and get consistent winners emailed to you or sent via text that will get you into profit. FatJackSports.com today.
Attention all fire and safety line experts. Middle Tennessee's fastest growing fire protection company is looking for experienced service technicians, designers, and sprinkler system experts like you. Tired of working for a large corporate employer? Work for a company where you're more than just a number. Jarrett Fire Protection is owned and operated by Nashville natives and wants to invite you to grow with their amazing team.
Hi, I'm Jason Jarrett, owner of Jarrett Companies. I'm looking to hire experienced sprinkler experts and will offer a sign-on bonus of up to $5,000 $1,000 for certified professionals. In addition to our great benefits that include a 401k match, PTO, and top pay with annual bonuses, we will also provide you with the top-of-the-line tools, trucks, and equipment that you need to grow your career. Our customer base is large and business is booming with many opportunities for advancement. Give us a call or go online to jarrettfire.com and apply today to become a member of our family and protect our community. That's JARRETT fire.com. Jarrett Companies, where we are above and beyond industry standards.
94.9 The Fan is your home for Hit City.
Tonight, your Nashville Sounds continue their 6-game road series at Durham.
He gloves, grabs, guns, gets him, and the Sounds win again.
Pre-game at 5:20.
Nashville Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan and the Fan app.
Now, your Game Center update.
This is Nick Frazier, and this Game Center update is brought to you by BetUS Sportbook and Casino, celebrating 30 years with a special football season offer, up to 30 risk-free bets. It's called Bet Protect. Get started with BetUS.com. Yesterday, Mike Vrabel spoke to the media and was asked about Malik Willis's development and his struggles with turning the ball over.
It has to improve. You know what I mean? It has to. And he knows that. All the good things Malik did, he knows that. And again, there can be, I'm trying to make a play, but at some point in time, we just have to make them good ones and learn from them, not make the same mistake twice. And just knowing coverages and say I'm not forcing it in there. I'm just going to live to fight another day. I'm going to check it down. We understand that we have to be better and improve our ball security. We also have to improve our ability to disrupt the football and turn it over.
Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds look to get a win on the road versus the Durham Bulls, the AAA affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays. You're listening to 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Broadcasting on Alexa.
I appreciate that.
And other smart speakers. 1025 and 1063.
And the score!
You can run different offenses.
The doors on the board.
Off the field, on the field.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Covering your teams and the news of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase.
Who is pleasant to listen to.
With Caroline Fenton, Willie Donick, and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason.
You are hands down my favorite radio personality of all time.
On 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
With no further ado,
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app. We're live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game Studios. And we are streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. Our video streaming is brought to you by Superbook. Download their app today and use promo code THEGAME. And hey, college football is finally back, and so is our college football game of the week. Tune into 1025 and 1063 The Game this Saturday at 11 a.m. for Tennessee versus Virginia, presented by Twin Peaks. Take your tailgate to Twin Peaks for scenic views of all the hottest non-conference games across the country. So yesterday, Willy did, which we will do annually going into the Titans season, 10 Titans questions. So, prop bets, over-unders, expectations for the season, all really great and thought-provoking questions that Willy presented to D-Mase and myself yesterday. But there were a couple in particular, and I want to start with this one that I'd really been thinking a lot about that Willy posed yesterday. One of them was Ryan Tannehill games that he will play in. I believe you set the over-under at 14 and a half games.
Yes, that was not based on Vegas or anything. That was just my thought. My thought with all the questions is if it went one way, then that could really lead the Titans down a positive path. It went another way, if too many of those 10 questions, like the Titans aren't going to go 10 for 10 in positive outcomes in these 10 questions. But if they went 7 for 10, you would feel a lot better about, maybe them going back to the postseason. If it goes a different way, then you can see, 6 and 11 is not that far off. If the wheels fall off on some of these things. So I didn't go to Vegas for any of the numbers, but I was thinking, okay, if Tannehill were to play 15 or more games, that gives him a reasonable shot of having a competitive season. If he plays less than 14, now we're looking at last year. What do we have? There's a lot of question marks there.
Exactly. The Willy Donick Sportsbook, if you will.
Exactly.
The Willy D Sports B. So you said the over-under for Tannehill starts, games that he'll play in at 14.5. And I said over because really, for the most part, Ryan Tannehill has not been injured in his tenure with the Titans. Last year, he sprained his ankle against the Chargers, and then he came back and then had another ankle injury in that game against the Colts. But I thought it was more so, same ankle injury that gets re-aggravated. So let's call that one injury that kept him out of a significant number of games last season. Really, for the most part, Tannehill stayed healthy. Even in 2021, when everyone got hurt, Tannehill was the one factor that remained in all 17 games. He was able to stay healthy. He had not missed a game. So I put the over on Ryan Tannehill. Another one was over under Derrick Henry carries. I believe you put it at 320.
320.5 to be exact.
320
Just so you don't have a push, right? Yeah, it's going to be one or the other.
And I said over. Because I think as long as Derrick Henry is cooking, then you got to let the big dog eat. So I was thinking about taking the over on both of those prop bets. And I thought to myself, is that too generous? Like, do I have too high of expectations? But I thought no. And if Tannehill can stay healthy and can be in the mix for 15 plus games, if Derrick Henry is productive enough that he's getting the football over 300 times in a 17-game season, those two stay healthy and those two stay productive, is that enough to win the division? That combined with the defense, how good that we think the defense is going to be and that we saw on full display in training camp and the first 3 preseason games, frankly, I do think that's enough to win the division.
I think that combination, if you look historically, has been the reason that they've won the division or made the playoffs. That combination, right? A healthy quarterback for 17 games and a very consistent, dominant runner. If you have those two things, you're going to be in games. And like you said, if you have a defense, that's what's different. They haven't always had a defense that has been as good as the defense looks like it can be this year. They won games. They won the division. They snuck into the postseason with a solid performance from Tannehill and a great performance from Henry without a great defense. So what would that look like if you had a top 10 defense with? But I'm a little bit less optimistic than you are. I went under on both for a couple of reasons. I just think Tannehill, at this stage of his career, the older you get, it's harder to stay healthy, especially with a shaky offensive line.
Yeah.
He's been sacked a bunch the last 2 years. He had ankle surgery. Maybe he's not quite as quick as he has been before. I'm concerned about that. And with Derrick Henry, I actually think the best ticket for the offense to grow is to have him carry the ball a little bit less, diversify a little more. You have DeAndre Hopkins. You have Tajay Spears. That's another big one, right? If Spears is doing well, can you give it to Henry less? And I'm not saying it's because Henry isn't good. I'm saying you might get more out of Henry with a few less carries. You might get better efficiency there. So that's the complex part of this thing. But I am curious what the fans think about it because we just kicked it around the three of us yesterday. I would love to get some fan feedback on what they think this is going to look like.
And when I thought about this, I thought surely it can't be that simple. We know the defense is going to be good. We know the defense could have the potential to carry this team. We got that. But could it really be as simple as a productive Derrick Henry and a healthy Ryan Tannehill with a Treylon Burks that we at least expect to be improved and hopefully, fingers crossed, healthy for the majority of the season, adding DeAndre Hopkins into the mix, Tim Kelly calling plays and maybe being a little bit more maybe just a little bit better than Todd Downing? Like, are those
maybe
all
it's just a better fit. It's a better fit. It's a better rhythm. He gets more people involved.
Not horrible?
Yeah. If you take a look, they've been in the bottom 10 the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, even with them in the bottom 10, they won 12 games. Last year, they were in the bottom 10 for a lot of reasons with the injuries, but they still were 7-3 at one point with all the struggles. And if they hadn't lost Tannehill, they might have still won the division out of it. So the bar is low.
Right.
So Kelly could just be a decent upgrade and you might see much better results. We'll see.
And there's another aspect of that, one of the questions that you brought up yesterday and something that you just mentioned of, I look at the, your primary contributors on defense, Tannehill, Henry, Hopkins, Burks. But what about that secondary group of the offense? We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Every day we are live and local.
It will help them get better players. I'm really excited about this defensive front.
And your source for Nashville sports.
They had missed the playoffs.
Those players may end up being practice squad guys.
We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Are you or someone you know looking for a job change or a new career opportunity? Come out and interview with one or more of over 30 local employers ready to hire on the spot at Urban League's free workshop development hiring expo. Saturday, September 9th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Nashville State's White Bridge campus. This free event will include door prizes, food trucks, and much more. The future is yours. Join Urban League of Middle Tennessee on September 9th and take the next step to your exciting future. Call the Urban League office at 615-254-0525 for more information.
Hey, let me tell you about F&M Bank. And yes, we are going to take it to the bank again today. I will try again to have some success. I crashed and burned last week, but that's the way it goes. F&M Bank, though, never crashes and burns. They have got the great slogan, and they stick to it. Banking made easy on purpose. They want to be part of your life. They want to be part of your community. That's what they're doing in their 20 locations in our listening area on up into southern Kentucky. Strong presence over in Clarksville. Shout out to all of you over at F&M Bank Arena, which is open and running now. Fantastic place. But they're also on West End Avenue in Nashville. They're in Murfreesboro. They're in Mount Juliet. They're all over the place, and they're right on Main Street in the middle of it, and they want to help you. So check out tools that they have to make your banking easier, like the Smart Swipe. Great tool that deposits change into your savings account every time you make a debit card purchase. So if you make a debit card purchase from F&M Bank, you buy, say, your morning breakfast sandwich for $5.28 or $6.13. Smart Swipe would round up the purchase to $6. Transfer the difference to your F&M savings account. So every time you make a purchase, you're going to be saving money. Great little tool to do it, and you would build your savings every time you use your debit card. So saving money can be hard. You got to it takes discipline, but this is an easy way to do it. F&M Bank is responsible for that. So check out one of their branches or visit them online at myfmbank.com. Tell them you heard about the Smart Swipe from me here on 102.5 The Game, because all of us know a little change can make all the difference. We take it to the bank at 145. It's myfmbank.com. Member FDIC.
Calling all Nashville Sounds baseball fans. You know the 312 Pizza Company in Germantown is the best place to be before or after a Sounds game, but this season, it gets even better. Stop by 312 Pizza Company before or after any Nashville Sounds home game with your day of ticket and get a free old-style beer. That's right, you get a free old-style beer from 312 Pizza just for watching Sounds baseball, only redeemable with purchase. See you at 312 Pizza Company all baseball season long. 312 Pizza Company, a proud sponsor of your Nashville Sounds.
In St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida, fun in the sun goes way beyond the white sand beaches. Let's rock out at a waterfront concert at the Sound. Let's marvel at masterpieces of the Chihuly collection and make some flippered friends at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium. Let's pedal the 75-mile Pinellas Trail and stop at Florida's oldest microbrewery along the way. This fall, let's go for all the sun and none of the crowds. Let's shine. Plan your getaway at visitstpclearwater.com.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway. Now here's Jim Mitchell.
Our fleet vehicle program is a great benefit to all the fleet companies in Nashville. We are able to get their vehicle back on the road a lot quicker than the downtime of most dealers and most general repair shops, simply because we have the transmissions available. We're able to put priority on their vehicles to get them back on the road quickly.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway.
We try to stay cool by being on social media.
I'm with it. I'm hip.
Follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game and on Instagram at 1025 The Game Nashville.
Hey!
Oh, yeah, and like us on Facebook, too. having some fun in the midday.
Okay, that's really fun.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase.
It's a good source of energy because it's live.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Over or under, and this was me. I didn't go to Vegas or anything like this. This was just me setting the over-under. You guys can vote accordingly. Over or under 8.5 sacks.
I knew you were going to say
8.5
too.
sacks. So I'm setting a reasonable.
I was hoping you were going high.
And me
Okay.
too. I
Or
hope you were
low.
going 10. I was
tried
hoping.
to be reasonable with the expectations here and not over predict. But I was the Aaron Schatz analytics last year. They had very, very good pressure up the middle. Tier Tart is turning into a great player. He is a nose guard, and you be ready. He is going to earn big money next year from somebody.
All right, those little tidbit from Willy's 10 Titans questions yesterday. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, we are brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
So that was Harold Landry, over under 8.5 sacks in his return from the IR last year. We missed the whole season.
And I said under, one, given the injury. Maybe it's a slow start for Harold Landry. And also because I expect a little bit of the love to be spread around between Azeez Al-Shaair and Arden Key and the rest of this defensive front. So we broke down, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry. I expect Ryan Tannehill to play over 14.5 games. But of course, anything can happen, especially with this offensive line. I expect Derrick Henry to get over 320 carries, which was what the Willy Donick Sportsbook set the over-under at. And maybe, just
Here's the
maybe.
Book. Here's the book, everybody watching.
Literal sports book, sports-based book. Maybe, just maybe, between Tannehill and Henry, if they can get back to the level that they were at, if they can stay healthy, combined with this defense, combined with Treylon Burks staying healthy and DeAndre Hopkins, maybe, just maybe that's enough to win the division. I don't think that's crazy. But another question that you asked was which kind of secondary offensive players was going to get the most yards. I believe it was Tajay Spears, Chigakonkwo, Chris Moore, and Nick Westbrook-Akine, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I think between the three of us...
Yards from scrimmage. So the trick is with Spears, you get his rushing yardage and his receiving yardage.
Right. And I think the three of us focused in on the first two.
Yes.
Between Tajay Spears
so let's do
and
that for
Chigakonkwo.
today, just to keep it simple.
Let's keep it, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Between those two, Chigakonkwo and Tajay Spears. And I think that you could make an argument for either, because I expect both of those players to be, solid parts of this offense, reliable targets for Ryan Tannehill, and Tajay Spears to maybe be a Derrick Henry 2.0. And I don't mean that he's the same as Derrick Henry, but just another option in the run game. But overall, when I was thinking about that, I thought, how much better does it feel now that we can have this conversation and have a serious discussion about one of the two offensive players being consistent and reliable contributors to this offense? Like, we were not having that conversation last year.
No.
We were talking about, I don't know what it was. I don't remember the exact conversations that we were having, but we weren't having conversations of, well, we know that Treylon Burks and DeAndre Hopkins are going to be big parts of this offense, but how much more is Chigakonkwo going to contribute to the offense versus Tajay Spears, and vice versa? It feels like this offense, just personnel-wise, is in so much better of a position than it was last year, and that makes me optimistic. And I don't know, injuries are always a factor. You can't control those kinds of things. I don't know what kind of game day play caller Tim Kelly is going to be, but I have to think he's at least going to be better than Todd Downing. So just based off of the conversations that we were having and the fair arguments that we were making for multiple offensive players, makes me feel like this Titans offense is in a much better position.
Well, Spears and Okonkwo, to me, are two big X factors, which is why I asked the question. Mm-hmm. And I did basically the prop. Who do you think is going to end up with more yards for scrimmage? We can have fun with that. But I think in the bigger picture, if Okonkwo, who had 450 yards last year, and you think about that number, 450 yards, the analytics on those 450 yards were off the charts. He had some big plays in there. He also as they started, when the season got going, they started figuring out that he was really good, and they started throwing it to him more. That's when Tannehill was hurt. So we haven't really seen Okonkwo a little more developed with a healthy Ryan Tannehill. So what's that going to look like? And now he's got DeAndre Hopkins and hopefully an older, wiser Treylon Burks to create more threats. So Okonkwo is a really intriguing guy for the offense, which we really haven't seen much other than the flash in Minnesota where he dropped a couple of passes. And, that is what it is. But we want to see where they're going to line up Okonkwo. Is he going to be more of like an H-back? He hasn't really been what they call the inline blocking tight end. He's more of a lighter, faster receiving kind of tight end, Travis Kelce type. So how do they utilize him? Are they going to use less two tight end sets? Because the fact that he's not a blocker sometimes has the need for you to have that extra tight end in there who is a blocker, right? And you go two tight ends. Are they going to sort of grow out of that with Tim Kelly? This is what we don't really know because nobody's going to see. They're not going to show anything that they're going to do to people in the preseason game, right? And then you got Spears, who we love. His analytics were great in the preseason. Not since they've had DeMarco Murray have they had another guy that is alongside of Derrick Henry going, hey, let's give Derrick a series off because we've got this other guy. They haven't had that, right? You hoped Haskins would be that guy. He wasn't that guy. They found Hillman and Foreman after Derrick Henry got hurt, and they got mileage out of them, and they brought Hilliard back. But I think Hilliard was still sort of the change of pace receiving back. So I want to see if Spears can become a guy that they have enough trust in to say, okay, here's a section in the game where we can take a little bit of workload off of Derrick Henry here and not go with this old school, let's just keep giving it to him until the defense breaks. And at the end of the year, he's got 360 carries. I would love to see them be able to use the two of them in concert a little bit more because it hasn't been that. It's been, in the past, Derrick Henry until the defense subsides or the Titans come up short. You know what I mean? It's like it's all him. It's all on him. Can Spears become a guy that is a weapon to where it's not just, hey, Derrick needs a break for a play or it's third and long. It's, hey, we want Spears in the game. Or, as you guys always bring up, can you have formations where they're both in?
That's my thing.
I've never seen them get to that point where that looks good. Like they've experimented with it, but nothing that's stuck, right? Two backs in there.
That's my thing is, just in terms of where you line up, can you just be a little bit more sly
it's
and
creative,
stealthy
right?
in what
Innovative.
you're doing?
Because then who comes off the field? Does Chig come off the field if you have two running backs? Or is there only one wide receiver in the game? If you go to, what would the formation be? You can't – something's got to give, right?
If Derrick Henry is running the ball well, I have no problem with continuing to give Derrick Henry the ball over and over again. And if that means 350 carries for Derrick Henry at the end of the season because you were getting good production out of him, I'm okay with that. My problem with the Titans last season, I heard a lot of Titans fans always say, well, I knew if they were going to run or they were going to pass. Well, yeah, you could just say they're going to run it. There's a 50% chance that you're going to be right. I think where the obvious thing came in was when, let's say, they took Derrick Henry off the field on 3rd and 4. Well, if you take Derrick Henry off the field on 3rd and 4, you know they're not going to run it. Or if Derrick Henry is on the field, the personnel packages last season were predictable because of who was on the field. If you can you camouflage it a little bit more. If you got Spears and Henry on the field, well, now that forces the defense to not stack the box for Derrick Henry and give Tajay Spears a look or Okonkwo a look or whoever might be on the field. Can you just be a little bit more creative in the personnel that's on the field? And part of that was Downing. Part of that last season, too, was who did you have that was going to instill fear into defenses not named Derrick Henry? I think now that you have pieces that are at least more proven, either through the preseason or last season for Chig's case, that you can afford to be more creative in your packages. And it's not just, Derrick Henry's on the field, they're going to run it. Derrick Henry's off the field, it's a pass play.
Yeah, Derrick Henry had his best year as a receiver last year. he caught only one pass on third down all year. So everything he was doing was good and a big improvement over what he had done before as receiver, but it was still coming in the first and second down sets. As you were saying, they got into third down. He's not a natural route runner, pass catcher, and so they have kept him off the field. So when you get into those 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, that's where your dilemma is. If it's 3rd and 8, I wouldn't expect to see Derrick Henry on the field this year. I think you've got, like you're saying, you got a lot more options that you think, okay, this could be good. Chig looks like could be a weapon. Traylon Burks could be a weapon. You've got DeAndre Hopkins now. So you have more options. As one texter points out, though, all of this sounds great, but nothing matters for the Titans, as the texter said, unless the offensive line can do their job. So that's why I get into the 2 tight ends thing. If you can't protect the quarterback, then all of these ideas sound great. But if you don't have time to throw, can you pull it off?
That's the unfortunate reality. That's kind of the sobering thing to consider is, can this offensive line just do its job? I don't need the offensive line to be a steel brick wall. I just need the offensive line to create holes for the run game and to keep Ryan Tannehill upright. I forgot who we were talking to. Maybe it was Trevor Maddich. I believe I was filling in for Jared one day, and I talked to Trevor Maddich. And he said, can this offensive line just be serviceable? Can it just, can it do the bare minimum? Can it just not be bad? Is really all we're asking.
Yeah.
Based off of what we saw in the 3rd preseason game, I don't know. I really don't know. But that's the hitch in all of this. Can the offensive line be serviceable? Don't even need to be average. Serviceable. Just get the job done.
I don't think we're going to know for a while there. It's a lot to ask with who they've got in there. I think there's a chance, especially if a guy or two gets hurt, it could be ugly. But hopefully it can be serviceable, because if it is, then I think they have the potential to make a jump. That's where a lot of our questions were focused yesterday. They scored only 17.5 points per game as a team.
That's so bad.
That's low. So can they get up to closer to the NFL average, which is 22 points? We set the over-under at 21. They allowed 49 sacks last year and 47 the year before. That was top 10, not in the good side, like top 10 worst. So could they get closer to average in that category, closer
for a team
to 40?
That runs the ball a lot.
That's you're right. That's factored in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they could get closer to 40, that's the kind of, helping on the margins. Nothing crazy, but just things that could aid you in moving up to being a steady offense to go with a good defense. That's the formula you're looking for.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Got a lot of texts in our text lines. We're right to your phones on this coming up next. Hey, Pro Golf is coming to Nashville this September 14th through 17th with the Simmons Bank Open at the Grove Club. Text the keyword golf, GOLF, right now to 615-737-1025 and enter to win a weekend pass for 4 to enjoy the event in style, including food and drink. 1025-1063, The Game.
He breaks down every game.
The players are still going to be fine.
And knows the ins and outs of the two-tone blue.
They deal with their own position coaches.
He is ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter Teron Davenport.
It's clear what he's doing.
TD joins every Monday at 1, Thursdays at 3, Friday mornings at 8, and anytime on the Talkin' with TD podcast.
I think that's really cool how he could show both sides.
TD is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It's Family Leisure's 30th annual Labor Day sale.
End of summer clearance items like pools and rafts and pool toys to our new indoor products like massage chairs and theater seating.
Save up to 40% off on all new patio furniture. Save up to 70% on display model and discontinued items.
Family Leisure has truckloads of spas arriving daily. There are even some scratch and dent spas on sale and ready for immediate delivery.
Home theater seating, 3-piece sets start at only $9.99. That's Family Leisure's Labor Day sale going on now at both huge locations, Franklin and Antioch.
Well, family and fun come together.
calling all Nashville Sounds baseball fans. You know that 312 Pizza Company in Germantown is the best place to be before or after a Sounds game, but this season, it gets even better. Stop by 312 Pizza Company before or after any Nashville Sounds home game with your day of ticket and get a free old-style beer. That's right, you get a free old-style beer from 312 Pizza just for watching Sounds baseball, only redeemable with purchase. See you at 312 Pizza Company all baseball season long. 312 Pizza Company, a proud sponsor of your Nashville Sounds.
Are you or someone you know looking for a job change or a new career opportunity? Come out and interview with one or more of over 30 local employers ready to hire on the spot at Urban League's free workshop development hiring expo. Saturday, September 9th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Nashville State's White Bridge campus. This free event will include door prizes, food trucks, and much more. The future is yours. Join Urban League of Middle Tennessee on September 9th and take the next step to your exciting future. Call the Urban League office at 615-254-0525 for more information.
Are you drowning in credit card debt? Want to get cash out of your home's equity? Loan Pronto can do it now in less than a week. Hey, Willy Donick here. That's right. Loan Pronto's Equity Express line of credit just got even faster. You can get $50,000, $100,000, even $200,000 in as little as 5 days. You don't even have to touch your primary mortgage. You can keep that 3% rate intact. Get just the money you need and pay off all those credit cards or get that home improvement project started. With this revolutionary program, you can access up to 90% of your home's value, and in most cases, there's no appraisal. Stop paying insane interest rates to the credit card companies and get tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash in as little as 5 days. Call Loan Pronto now for the even faster Equity Express line. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
Nashville Sounds baseball lives on 94.9 The Fan. Catch every pitch.
Swing and a miss, strike three.
Every hit.
That's a base hit.
Every run.
Looking up, it's gone.
On your home for Sounds baseball. 94.9 The Fan and The Fan app.
Hey, Nashville, it's Mike Greenberg, and you're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Series, they kind of got blasted. They didn't do much at all, and so they stayed in for another series, and they started to get movement. And I'm guessing that's against some of the backups for Minnesota, but at least they were able to see some success. The starting offensive line for the Titans got some runway. They worked together well on that third drive, and that's what the important thing is.
That was Trevor Maddich. His point, hey, just can the offensive line be serviceable? A little bit of offensive line news, speak the devil. Justin Murray, who was released from the Titans on roster cutdown day, has been added to the Titans practice squad. So he was with the Titans throughout the preseason. He was working with that, second and third team offense throughout the 3 preseason games. So practice squad offensive lineman just signed. That is Justin Murray. But let's get some of your thoughts, breaking down Willy's 10 Titan questions. Tajay Spears, Chigakonkwo's contribution to the offense this year. If Tannehill and Derrick Henry can stay healthy and stay productive, combined with the defense, is that enough to win the division? We'll get your thoughts on that. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter texts in and says, the Titans have a lot of young players on the roster besides a handful of veterans. Do you think that's by design, and do you think that's a good thing? Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel both were asked about that yesterday. 11 rookies signed to the initial 53-man roster. That's a high number. And Rand Carthon said, no, it's about who earns the job. It doesn't matter if they're a rookie or a draft pick or a veteran or whatever it might be, that they earned their spot on the roster. Now, I kind of expected him to say that. I don't know if that's entirely the truth or not. But I think that, is it a good thing that the Titans have this many young players on the roster? I mean, I don't know. Can they contribute?
I don't think they really had a choice. I think when you have a bit of a top-heavy group of veterans that take up a percentage of the salary cap, because what happens with young players? They're cheap. They make the league minimum. Mm-hmm. I think you tend to have more of those when you have some veterans that, and I'm not sure it's that unique to the Titans, but I think Kevin Byard, as I've said all summer, and Kevin Byard and Derrick Henry, for their positions, make a lot more money than most teams allocate to that. So you got to make up for it somewhere. We talked about the whole kicker saga. Part of the equation with Nick Folk is that for a veteran that has kicked as much as he has, he's relatively inexpensive salary cap-wise. They saved about $1 million from him to what they were going to have to pay Randy Bullock. That's part of the reason why they cut Bullock back when they did. So I think that's a little bit why they have more young players. So whether it's good or bad, it's just what they feel like is the best way to go. What have they done? This is what the observation from the outside is as much as mine. They're trying to thread the needle. They're not in a full rebuild. We know that. But they're not in a position to go all in and have all veterans and mortgage the future. They're trying to sort of split the difference. So they have a lot of young players, but they have kept the old gang. And when I say the old gang, it's Tannehill, Byard, Henry. I mean, there was all speculation on moving on from all three of those guys. They didn't. They kept them. And, the nucleus that's won a lot of games for them.
Right.
They hang on. Mike Vrabel does not want to rebuild.
It feels like the last hurrah.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not even Mike Vrabel's DNA to want to rebuild. To me, it feels like the last hurrah with Tannehill and Henry and Byard and, what happens in 2024. Do you want to run it back with Tannehill? You have that option. You want to move forward with your quarterback of the future? You have that option as well. Andrew Texan says, please, Lord, way less 2 tight end sets. I'm so stoked that we only have 3 tight ends. So thrilled to see so much shotgun in the preseason. I'm not stoked the Titans only have 3 tight ends. I mean, Mike Vrabel said it earlier in the offseason that we're going to have to use a tight end like we would normally traditionally use a fullback, as basically just a pure blocking tight end. I don't think lack of depth in any position group is a good thing that you should be excited about. And what Tim Kelly decides to do in terms of personnel packages is one thing, but I'm not stoked the Titans got 3 tight ends on the roster.
I think we're making a little too – because when you have guys who are more or less the blocking tight ends, they are almost interchangeable from the practice squad. I think they've done that before. So they really – you can say they have 3 tight ends right now, but they have the access to others if they need them. And those are easier to find, just straight-up blocking tight end. So I'm not saying for sure we're going to see way less – 2 tight end sets. Remember that the Titans have been in the top 5 of most 2 tight end sets for the last several years, right? Going back to Arthur Smith. It's been effective for them at times, but we're all curious if that's going to go. And I agree. It would be pretty cool to see what they could do if they didn't have to rely on the second tight end. But it's like the security blanket for them. And can they protect the quarterback without that extra blocker in there?
Right. And right now, I don't know if that's the case or not with this offensive line.
I don't know.
Tommy Texan says, I would put both Henry and Spears in the backfield, but I don't agree with less carries for Derrick Henry. We all know he gets better the more he totes the rock. Also, it would be sweet if Henry could lead block for Spears on certain runs.
That ain't happening.
I'm good with Derrick Henry not blocking for Tajay Spears or for anyone.
Well, they eliminated the fullback from the roster, right? They didn't even have him in camp. They are not using the, quote, lead blocker now.
I don't even know how many fullbacks still exist.
Well, some teams use them for sure, but I think Okonkwo, for example, he could be on a particular play a lead blocker. Maybe not the Lorenzo Neal battering ram, but you know everybody blocks, right? It's just a matter of where you line them up, and are you the traditional thing that we pick up, a lead blocker where you're going through the hole,
right,
and then the ball carrier is going through that same hole. It's not always like that. There's creativity involved, but Derrick Henry is not lead blocking for anybody. Now, I think the optimum number of carries for Derrick Henry would be about 300 if they could do that. That's still plenty of carries. I'd still is going to put him probably in the top 5 of the league. Remember, he's led the league in 3 of the last 4 years, and he would have led it the 4th year had he not broken the foot.
Right.
So we're used to it being 350 or more. But could he be better with a few less carries? But I agree with you. He's a guy that needs to get the ball to be effective. And so you gotta feed him to a point. But what's that perfect balance of getting him his touches but not wearing him out and not leaning on him too much?
And I don't know if I can come up with a number right now because we can look at, the past with Derrick Henry and the average. But to me, it's if Derrick Henry is moving the ball well and he's cooking, you give the ball to Derrick Henry.
But remember, like last year, he had 1,500 yards. But there were some weeks where, he went through a little slump. Like he was averaging about 2 point something yards per carry. I don't remember, but there was about a month where, yeah, that's your bread and butter. He's still good, but he's maybe not the hero. Not the guy that just puts everybody on his shoulders like in the past. Hopefully, he's got more help to where you don't have to go to him as much. But he's still good. Like less is more is my thought.
Right. Whatever's working. Hey, as far as this offense is concerned,
what else did you have?
How bad it was last
year, right? You had nothing else.
Especially when Tannehill was out. I mean, how Malik Willis looked last season, you had to hand the ball off to Derrick Henry on every single play. You had no option.
And that's where I would defend Downing to a degree is, I don't know, he didn't have the cards in the deck a lot of weeks to do a whole lot. And so you could look bad even if you've got this great game plan. I'm not saying he was the greatest offensive coordinator, but I would defend him some because there were some weeks where I was like, I don't know how you make this work.
He didn't have a lot to work
nothing.
with. He also didn't help himself a lot with what he did have to work with.
Agreed.
But yeah, what he had at his disposal, especially with that offensive line, it wasn't great. It was not great. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, some news that came out early this morning on the college football front. And I thought that we were done with conference realignment, but clearly we are not. We will get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
He knows the ins and outs of the Titans and isn't afraid to give his opinion.
Traylon Burks needs a massive offseason.
He's Jonathan Hutton of Outkick.
I don't see how they make a move without going to Ryan Tannehill.
Catch him every Monday at 10:30 on Chase McCabe and every Wednesday at noon on Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase. Hutton is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Now through Labor Day, get incredible deals at Electronic Express. Get a 70-inch LG 4K Smart TV, only $599, or a Maytag laundry pair, only $449 each. Electronic Express has huge savings on 4K TVs, appliances, furniture, mattresses, and more. Don't miss out on an HP Ryzen laptop, just $399, or Sony Bluetooth speakers for only $16. Plus, get up to 60 months special financing throughout the entire store. Electronic Express. We make it happen.
Are you drowning in credit card debt? Want to get cash out of your home's equity? Loan Pronto can do it now in less than a week. Hey, Willy Donick here. That's right. Loan Pronto's Equity Express line of credit just got even faster. You can get $50,000, $100,000, even $200,000 in as little as 5 days. You don't even have to touch your primary mortgage. You can keep that 3% rate intact. Get just the money you need and pay off all those credit cards or get that home improvement project started. With this revolutionary program, you can access up to 90% of your home's value, and in most cases, there's no appraisal. Stop paying insane interest rates to the credit card companies and get tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash in as little as 5 days. Call Loan Pronto now for the even faster Equity Express line. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway. Now here's Jim Mitchell.
Our fleet vehicle program is a great benefit to all the fleet companies in Nashville. We are able to get their vehicle back on the road a lot quicker than the downtime of most dealers and most general repair shops, simply because we have the transmissions available. We're able to put priority on their vehicles to get them back on the road quickly.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway.
Sometimes it's good to be loud.
This is the NFL.
Especially when you're Jared Stillman.
That's where we are.
He's not afraid to say what's on his mind each and every day.
That was embarrassing. I don't care if you're a rookie. That was embarrassing.
Stillman and Company. Weekdays at 2 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Having some fun in the midday.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Tune in for Nashville Sounds Baseball today at 5:35 p.m. on 94.9 The Fan. The Sounds take on the Durham Bills, AAA affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by 312 Pizza Company, Farm Bureau Health Plans, and Family Leisure. Did you hear the news this morning, Willy?
I did.
Conference realignment is not quite done yet, and I was so looking forward to the start of college football season because I thought finally all of these conference realignment and NIL and tampering and transfer portal, all of these off-season conversations can finally come to a conclusion, and we can talk about how Florida got a jersey penalty on a punt. And we can finally talk about the beautiful catch that Minnesota receiver made last night.
Another one-score
beautiful
loss for Nebraska. Even with the new coach, they find a way to lose by one score. It's 26 one-score losses in 5 years plus a game.
Scott Frost is probably somewhere kicking back in his chair, just
it's
giggling.
not just me. It wasn't just me.
But I thought we could finally just have these conversations and enjoy talking about football that actually happened and football that actually matters. Yet here we are talking about conference realignment yet again, because I woke up this morning, rolled over, checked my phone, and saw that Cal, Stanford, and SMU had been voted into the ACC. Now, we all know these moves are motivated by one thing and one thing only, and that's money.
Green,
scratch, dollar
cakes,
bills,
cabbage, iron,
dough, cash money
rubles
in the bank. It's all motivated by a couple of rubles. And so, adding Cal, Stanford, and SMU to the ACC, it does make their television deal with ESPN more lucrative, because you might say, well, the more money, but then you have to divide it up between more teams. But Cal and Stanford are giving some of that money revenue back. So they're only making, I believe, 30% of the TV revenue of other ACC teams. And also, SMU is not making a cent. SMU
for
is going
9 years.
Revenue-less for, it was 7 years, now 9 years that they've joined the ACC. So yes, ACC member schools will be getting a better deal from their ESPN television deal. Other than that, I don't see where this is beneficial in the slightest. Other than TV dollars. It doesn't make sense geographically. It doesn't make sense. Cal and Stanford, nothing makes me more excited than a Louisville Cal game. Nobody's going to be interested in watching those games. Yeah, Cal and Stanford are wonderful academic institutions, absolutely. But they don't bring the kind of oomph, the eyeballs that other schools might bring. I don't care about watching Cal and Stanford or SMU football. The brands don't carry as much as, say, a Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, or a USC, UCLA joining the Big Ten. It doesn't make any sense to me, other than maybe the extra dollars that you might get on the other side. And maybe that was enough for the ACC to say, fine, the extra money is worth it. It's just a very odd, strange, misfit kind of move.
I wonder, just in the football landscape, if the ACC, they must feel like they are, but they really feel like adding these three teams in football will keep up with the Joneses, because that's the fear. You have a dissolving league, right? The collapse of the Pac-12. And so there's this ACC thought of, well, we've got to survive. We're revenue-wise behind the Big Ten and the SEC. The Big 12 has made their big move by absorbing half of the Pac-12. I don't know if that's really going to solve all of their problems, but it's the direction it's gone. So here they are in the ACC. Does this really help them? That's my first question. Are they really going to gain that much more revenue with these three teams specifically? I guess they feel like it's going to help. But the real issue is, what is the soul of the ACC really? When we think about ACC sports, Atlantic Coast Conference sports.
Now all Coast Conference.
Yes, all multiple coasts.
All the coasts.
I think of college basketball
Duke,
at its best.
UNC.
So that is so far gone now, you can't even kind of see it. So here's what I hope that this does. And I don't know if this is the final nail. There could be another chapter down the road. Probably will be. But can we start to wrap our arms around a little more? Let's do this for football. We just did the math. You and I were talking about, okay, when Miami plays Stanford or Miami plays Cal, that's obviously a double coast action. That's a 6-hour flight.
You're talking the most northwest point versus the most southeast point in the United States.
And they're in the same league. But for one football game, one time in a year, you leave on Friday, you play Saturday, you fly back, you're back Sunday night. In theory, you don't miss any, you miss your classes on Friday, whatever.
They do that now. They didn't come here to play school.
In football, you can do this. It's a huge revenue sport. We know the stakes are all about football. But can we start thinking about going back to sensible regional conferences in the other sports? I think all of the coaches in those other sports would sign up for it, as long as the money is, not terribly affected, right? And that's going to be the question. So how do you do it? But the fact is there's a lot of schools like Vanderbilt lacrosse, right, where Tim Hasselbeck's daughter plays, right? There is no SEC lacrosse. So Vanderbilt has to find another league to play in, and they play. There are other leagues where teams have a sport that is not in the SEC. So it already happens to a degree. You've got Notre Dame that is independent in football but plays in the ACC in the other sports. So can we have these dominoes start happening where we have better stuff to where you don't have this madness for the baseball teams, the basketball teams, where it really has had a bad effect, I think, and will only get worse as we go forward with this madness of geography.
Especially for, a Cal and a Stanford that's only getting 30% of the media rights and an SMU that's not making anything. Those are not easy travel bills to fit.
I don't know how they're going to do it.
I have no idea how they're going to do it. I mean, they're going to be taking buses out to the Bay Area. I have no idea how they're going to do it. And I don't know, and that's something that's been brought up a lot is, can't we just do football conferences? Because that's really what is motivating all of these decisions anyway, is football. And I don't know how you would go about that either. How would you go about basketball? Because basketball is a big part of the TV deals. Basketball is a huge part of the SEC network and with ESPN and with CBS. So would you negotiate those deals separately? I guess you would probably have to.
Good question.
How realistic is that?
I honestly have not thought about it to that degree, but it's madness. It's already madness with football, but in football, the travel logistics, you can make it work. You just can't make it work with Southern Cal and let's just take Southern Cal and UCLA softball. Pac-12 softball is outstanding.
Yeah.
They're playing in the Big Ten in softball. How about baseball? Big Ten baseball is nowhere near, just because of the weather and everything. It's hard for them to keep their best players. Most of them go south. UCLA and USC, big-time tradition in baseball. They've got to play in the Big Ten baseball. That's a huge game changer for their recruiting and everything else that goes with it. So I don't know how you do this, but we have got to start having discussions about that, because I just think it's untenable. Like, if you're a student, just think about your experience as a student. If you play UCLA baseball, you went to UCLA because they got a great baseball program, and you could win a national championship there. They have won. They've been top seeded, or USC that's won more national championships than anybody. But if I'm going there, I'm signing up for plane rides to Rutgers, to Columbus, Ohio, to Michigan. That's not great for your college experience there. That's tough.
And not to mention, I mean, you're constantly traveling. You're constantly having cross-country flights. So
it's a grind.
It is a grind.
And you're a kid.
And I think about the parents of those kids that, hey, if I'm, a Stanford football mom and my kid's going to play in Miami, well, I can't take the time or the dollars to fly out there. And those are things that we think about, you, Willy, as parents of kids, and you as a former college athlete. Those are things that we think about, just the unintended consequences. But that's not what commissioners and networks think about. They think about what we started the segment with, money. And unfortunately, when you prioritize revenue over everything else, there are unintended consequences. And there's an argument out there that the ACC isn't necessarily doing this as a revenue move, but more so as a last-ditch effort to try and maintain some sort of relevancy. Because Florida State has made it very clear that they would like to jump ship from the ACC if and when that opportunity arises. I think that UNC would probably be in the same boat of, look, we're going to leave when we get a better opportunity. Trevor Maddich was on with Ian Fitzsimmons this morning on ESPN Radio. He called it an insurance move. This was Trevor Maddich.
This is inoculation. They don't want to become like the Pac-12.
Absolutely. Good point.
Where you have some teams leave, some of them unexpectedly, and all of a sudden, the Pac-12 after this football season will disappear in a shower of sparks, as we know it. Just poof, and they're gone. And who was the Pac-12 going to bring in to replace all those teams that were gone? There was nobody available that could have the buyout from their own conference and all the different things, the grant of rights, and they're stuck not even able to expand right now very easily. So the ACC is looking at this. And by bringing in those teams, what they do is they pad their roster of teams so that if somebody's able to figure out contractually how to get out of the grant of rights before 2036,
Which is a long
they're
time.
not going to be down to 8 teams, right? And if they end up at 2036, if somebody's mad enough to leave, and several are, they still have guys there. Because if they don't bring these teams in, think about it. Let's fast forward to 2036, because it will come. And let's say that Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina and some others say, fine, we're done with this. We have an invitation at some other places and we're going to go. Who would the ACC bring in? Think about it. Who are the teams they'd bring in? Now, by bringing in 2 Power 5 teams from California, and you've got SMU in Dallas.
From the American Athletic Conference, yep.
Who's in Dallas, right? You bring them in now. It pads your roster in case you have an exodus so that you don't go poof in a shower of sparks like the Pac-12.
I totally see and understand and hear Trevor's point, and that's probably their line of thinking. But if you lose Florida State and North Carolina, I'm sorry, Cal and Stanford simply do not fill what you lost. It's the same way I felt with the Big 12. Texas and Oklahoma leave, and you're going to replace them with Cincinnati and Houston and BYU. That doesn't add up to me. So
but I think Trevor's point is you still have a league. Like the
Pac-12
is disappointed. They don't have a league. They're done.
Yeah. And I get it. It's an insurance move. It just seems like, to me, the ACC
gets messed up.
Is better than that. Or at least it should be better than that. To need to pick up teams that just geographically don't make sense, culturally don't make sense, to add them to your league just in case everyone else is so fed up with the ACC, Florida State, UNC, teams that can afford to leave, that they do.
But what they've done is they've made concessions because remember the whole scuttlebutt about we want weighted revenue. Mm-hmm. If we bring more to the table, we should get a bigger share of the revenue. They conceded on that. And now you have teams that are coming in and not taking any of the revenue. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to help get more revenue to those teams so they feel like they can compete. Like if I'm Clemson or if I'm North Carolina, as long as I have a seat at the table in the playoffs, really that's and maybe arguably an easier path to get there every year.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Like as long as I'm getting enough money to hang in there financially and feel like I can compete with the schools from the other leagues who might get a little bit more, but I can offset that by saying, look at our path to the playoffs each year for a football powerhouse. We can get there.
If it makes up for it. Because right now the ACC makes $60 million less than the SEC every single year.
And that's
3 years, 5 years from then, that adds up.
But if Clemson's get a big, let's just take Clemson or Florida State. They're the wannabe football powerhouses. That's what they're all traditions built on and everything like that. It means more to them than anybody else. They're not in the basketball Tobacco Road kind of mentality that maybe North Carolina is. But if they're getting in theory, if they're getting a little bit more of that share, and so that closes the gap, and you've got teams that aren't taking any more, and so that's bringing more money to the league, then maybe they can live with it. And they're saying, look, we don't have to beat Tennessee, Florida, Kentucky, Georgia, Ole Miss. There's less contenders
right
on a yearly basis in the ACC. That's a
true.
fact.
Yeah, it is. You have an easier path.
And if you have an
significantly
automatic
easier path.
bid to win that league to get in,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a shot at an at-large, if you're, say, 11-1, then okay, you can make it work.
I just feel like the ACC is diluting itself to make itself stronger. And look, in this age of conference realignment, maybe quantity is better than quality. Good luck. Good luck. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Eddie George, TSU head coach and Titans legend, will join us coming up next. His Tigers are taking on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this weekend. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
At Harbor Freight, we think you shouldn't have to break the bank to get great tools. Because we know that for some of you, tools are part of the job. And for others, they're just the beginning of making, fixing, restoring, and building. That's why we make high-quality tools that are priced affordably. Because we love being the start of all your working, making, fixing, restoring, and building. Whatever you do it for less at Harbor Freight.
Now, your Game Center update.
This is Nick Frazier, and this Game Center Update is brought to you by BetUS Sportbook and Casino, celebrating 30 years by offering the industry's biggest 125% sign-up bonus. Get started at BetUS.com. News out of college football. The ACC is expected to vote on expanding the conference, adding Stanford, Cal, and SMU. Here's ESPN's Trevor Maddich on how bringing in these teams could be an insurance policy for the conference.
Let's fast forward to 2036 because it will come. And let's say that Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina and some others say, fine, we're done with this. We have an invitation in some other places and we're going to go. Who would the ACC bring in? You bring them in now. It pads your roster in case you have an exodus so that you don't go hoof in the shower of sparks like the Pac-12.
Tune in to 94.9 The Fan as the Nashville Sounds take on the Durham Bulls, the AAA affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays. You're listening to 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 1025 and 1063.
79-52 Vanderbilt. And I think he's going to coach him up by zero.
You're going to see more moves. The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Covering your teams and the news of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mace.
Who is pleasant to listen to.
With Caroline Fenton, Willie Donick, and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason.
You are hands down my favorite radio personality of all time.
On 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
With no further ado,
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. We're live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game Studios, and we are streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. Our video streaming is brought to you by Superbook. Download their app today and use promo code THEGAME. Eddie George is slated to meet with us. He is in South Bend, Indiana. Big game for the TSU Tigers taking on Notre Dame. Eddie George is presented by Calabria Pizza. Come try their pizza in Goodlettsville and Mount Juliet because life is too short to eat bad pizza. So we will chat with Eddie George shortly. But before we get into our chat with Eddie George, it is the weekend of college football. We got 5 straight days of college football. We had a brutal game with Florida and Utah last night, a fun one with Nebraska and Minnesota, and we've got college football all throughout the rest of Labor Day weekend. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the season, we've got some SEC questions. So Willy has come up with a list of questions for me, SEC, storylines to follow, players to watch. I've also gone through every single SEC game of the season, and I have my official final records for each team in the SEC. So we'll get into all the fun of the latest in the SEC this season.
Yeah, so I was when you texted that this morning, I was like, wow, you went through every game, every team's prediction. That's pretty impressive.
It's a lot easier because it's really just half because they all play each other. So I'll go through Alabama's schedule. If I have them beating, Ole Miss, well, that's already takes care of Ole Miss's part of their schedule, so it kind of works itself out.
Okay, so let's start with this. When you went through it game by game, we all know that it's Georgia and Alabama are the favorites. So do you still feel like Georgia and Alabama clearly are the favorites? I mean, we know your connection with LSU. So
I will take my purple and gold hat off.
Okay, so let's start Georgia. Is there anybody that you think could contend with Georgia in the East? Is Tennessee at that point?
No, and I don't even think it's really close. And even with a shift at quarterback, Stetson Bennett in the NFL, Carson Beck takes over the starting job at Georgia, and he's been at Georgia the last 3 years. It's not like he's some young gun, true freshman that's, just taking over the reins. He's been at Georgia. He's wanted to be the starting quarterback at Georgia, so he could have transferred, and he could have started at probably a lot of other programs in college football, but decided to stay, so he takes over this season. Mike Bobo takes over play calling duties. He's now the offensive coordinator, so there's changes at Georgia, absolutely. And for any other program, I might be a little bit more skeptical having so many offensive changes, but Georgia just has more talent than any other team in the country, offensively and defensively. I think they have the best player in college football in Brock Bowers, which is crazy that it's a tight end who might be the best player in college football, but that's the truth. I mean, Georgia has turned into the Alabama that we have known of. It is just like a plug and play. One player goes down, the next guy up plays, and he might be just as good, if not even better, than the guy that went down. Georgia has been a talent factory, and I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. Georgia, I believe, is untouchable, at least in the regular season. The West side of things, though, I think it's up in the air. I don't think it's Alabama's West to lose. I look at LSU, Alabama, and Texas A&M all being contenders for the SEC West.
So you really feel Texas A&M will get back into this discussion?
I do. And I know that sounds crazy because Texas A&M went 5-7 last year, and in some of those losses, they looked brutal. But Texas A&M went through 3 quarterbacks last season, so I don't. Any program in the country is going to struggle. Texas A&M had a lot of injuries, specifically on the offensive line, and you could tell by the quarterback play. Texas A&M had a lot of true freshmen that played last season. So now those true freshmen have had a year of college football experience under their belts. I expect those players to take a step up this season. Their leading receiver, Anais Smith, was injured last season. He comes back. Connor Wegman was just named the starting quarterback, and I think that he's the best quarterback that Jimbo Fisher has recruited in his time at Texas A&M. So I expect Texas A&M to be much improved. I don't think that they're going to be a 12-0 team, but I do expect them to be, a giant killer. A little bit of a hot take here. I have Texas A&M beating Alabama.
You have Texas A&M beating Alabama. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, who wins the West?
I have LSU winning the West.
LSU winning the West.
I do. And that's not, maybe that is a certain part of me that's just an absolute LSU bobo. But LSU, and I'll admit it, I am more than happy to look at LSU's schedule through a glass half empty approach, because I think that there's 2 ways to look at it. That LSU is going into this season with more production, returning more production than any other team in the SEC. They're top 5 in the country. They're returning a starting quarterback. They're returning both of their coordinators. Only 2 teams in the SEC can say that, and it's LSU and Vanderbilt. They're returning the head coach. Their offensive line last season had 2 true freshmen on the outside. So they're now another year acclimated into the college game. Expect the offensive line to be better. LSU returns its leading receiver and returns its 5 top leading rushers from last season. I think just based off of the experience and the retention that LSU has, that's going to be able to propel them to the top of the West, because they're going to be able to win a lot of the games at the beginning of their schedule where Alabama may struggle instituting a new quarterback and a new offensive system.
I think that's a really interesting note you threw out there. Only 2 teams in the league return their quarterback and both coordinators. Mm-hmm. So I think let's just take the offensive side of it.
Yeah.
New quarterback and new offensive coordinator. I think that's one that could be disastrous for a school here or a school there. It might be seamless somewhere, but I guess that's the day and age we live in, right? With all the movement, especially of quarterbacks there. So of the team, so you like LSU's continuity there. That's what you're leaning on.
And the schedule. In the East, they play Florida, who we saw on display last night, and they don't look great. and they play at Missouri, which is an underratedly difficult place to play, but I'm not incredibly high on Missouri. I think they're an incredibly beatable team, especially given the talent on this LSU roster. So that's an advantage there, whereas last season LSU played Tennessee, which was, Tennessee was a top 10 team in the country at that time. So the schedule is inherently easier. I think that they're going to be able to start this season with fewer issues, fewer things to iron out than maybe some other teams in the West. So I like LSU in the West.
Okay. You got me going on a couple of things here on schedule and a couple other things you said. Let's come back to the schedule. I want to know when we come back who benefits the most from the schedule besides LSU. Any other team jump out at you that has a little bit easier schedule the way it falls this year? Because that's going to be a question going forward every year, especially when Oklahoma and Texas join the league.
We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Every day we are live and local.
I think Vanderbilt is steady, disciplined.
It's been so long since Tennessee's gotten out of the first weekend.
And your source for Nashville sports.
I don't mind going to another team.
You want to know what the coaching staff's going to look like?
We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
The path to the PGA Tour runs through Middle Tennessee. The Simmons Bank Open returns September 14th through 17th as part of the Korn Ferry Tour Finals. Catch all the exciting golf action and still not miss a minute of your favorite team's game in the Arctic Tailgate Village. Swing by the Sand Trap and take your shot at the famous floating Guitar Island Green while grabbing a bite from Hattie B's, Hogwood Barbecue, Dream Burger, and wash it down with a cold fashion from Nelson's Greenbrier. Purchase your tickets now at SimmonsBankOpen.com.
Hey, Tennessee, when you bet on Zen Sports, the new sportsbook in town, you get the best reward possible. Cold, hard cash. You bet with your own money, so why accept anything less from your rewards program? With Zen Sports, you earn cash on your bets, cash on your referrals bets, and a welcome bonus in, you guessed it, cash. So stop settling for Vegas rewards when we're in Tennessee. Cash in your old sportsbook for Zen Sports. Your wallet will thank you later. Zen Sports. Betting just got better. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and up and in Tennessee to bet.
Blue Raider fans, your home for all the MTSU football and men's basketball action is on 93.3 Classic Hits and 95.1 Classic Hits in the borough. Catch the action all season long with Chip Walters on the call. Go Blue Raiders!
Back in 1949, Dr. Houston began the tradition of treating athletes for common sports injuries. Today, the sports medicine physicians at Houston Clinic Orthopedics continue his legacy. Whether you play at school, in a league, on a professional team, or just enjoy being active, Houston Clinic Orthopedics physicians are there to help you stay in the game. Common sports injuries include tears, strains, sprains, and instabilities of the knee, shoulder, and ankle. Houston Clinic Orthopedics is located where you work and live. Visit tn.houston.com to book your appointment online. When experience matters, trust Houston Clinic Orthopedics.
Are you drowning in credit card debt? Want to get cash out of your home's equity? Loan Pronto can do it now in less than a week. Hey, Willy Donick here. That's right. Loan Pronto's Equity Express line of credit just got even faster. You can get $50,000, $100,000, even $200,000 in as little as 5 days. You don't even have to touch your primary mortgage. You can keep that 3% rate intact. Get just the money you need and pay off all those credit cards or get that home improvement project started. With this revolutionary program, you can access up to 90% of your home's value, and in most cases, there's no appraisal. Stop paying insane interest rates to the credit card companies and get tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash in as little as 5 days. Call Loan Pronto now for the even faster Equity Express line. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
Want to weigh in on the conversation? It's a brain booster. Slide into our DMs. Or just text or call at 615-737-1025. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet. Hearing this song makes my heart beat faster. I'm going to miss this song in 2024.
Did we ever get the answer? Are they staying with the song, even though it's a Big Ten game now? And how would SEC fans feel about that? Like, hey, you're stealing our song.
I think they're still going to use
I'm sure. I'm
this
thinking,
theme song.
I'm thinking they will.
That makes me sad. This does not scream Ohio State matchup to
Indiana, because they're going to be on tomorrow, CBS.
Barf.
Yeah, that's the CBS game, right?
Yeah, that's Chris Sanders, silly underdogs pick.
By the way, UConn
Can you believe
night,
that? Oh, yeah, that was a pretty good game.
That was good.
UConn's pretty good.
UConn's not bad.
That game could have been closer. Like, they were right in it. They had chances.
The final score is not indicative. It was like, what, 20-something, 14?
Right. And that's the fun of the silly underdog picks is you can have an underdog that's right there the whole game, and they still end up losing by 10 or whatever, but they had a shot. It was that was a good pick to pick UConn. No question about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I was kicking myself for a while for not picking Nebraska until that game happened.
I on Georgia's streaming thing, I pick. I've never done it until last year, but he's got this new thing on. So I am a participant in his underdog, and I took Nebraska.
Oh.
They should have won that game.
They should have won that game.
Good grief, they should have won that game.
One of the most beautiful catches I have seen in
That
quite
was a
some
great
time.
catch.
In the Minnesota end zone. It was beautiful.
I don't know that
toe drag swag.
I don't know that I've ever seen a guy do it quite like that, where it looked like he was like defying gravity on the one leg to keep it in the air just long enough so he could drag the other foot. That was incredible.
He looked like a ballerina.
Yeah, and he
was
almost had
beautiful.
one right before that. You remember that? They reviewed it. It was weird. The reviews, they reviewed both of those plays. They were both very clear cut, but they reviewed both of them. Just another chapter in the replay system is so inefficient. When it's clear cut, it should not take that long. You shouldn't have to take as much time. But we digress. Let's get back to the homeland here, SEC. SEC questions for Caroline here. All right? Before we went to the break, you mentioned that you like LSU in large part, as we've seen before. Sometimes when you get a little break in the schedule, it gives you an easier path to win a division.
Mm-hmm.
You like LSU for that reason and others that you laid out. Who else has a favorable schedule this year that you think could be worth noting?
When we talk about easy schedules, we cannot go without mentioning Georgia. Georgia, I think, is far and beyond the best team in the country. I think they're going to win the SEC. I think they're going to go 13-0 on their path to the playoff. Now, what happens in the playoff is one thing. But Georgia plays UT Martin, Ball State at home against South Carolina, UAB at Auburn, home against Kentucky, at Vandy, Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech. Like, that is, yes, it's an SEC schedule, and Georgia plays in the East.
So
where there
of the
are,
heavyweights, you just breeze through them. I heard a lot of games that they're going to be favored by 3-4 touchdowns at least.
Easy.
So who are their toughest 2 or 3 games?
Their toughest game, and their toughest game is going to be at Tennessee in Neyland Stadium.
And that is their
late in the
toughest game.
season. That's their toughest game. I would say their second toughest game is probably at home against Ole Miss. And that's at home against Ole Miss. And I think Ole Miss is going to be a good team, not an elite team. They're like my second tier of teams in the SEC West, my top tier being Alabama, A&M, and LSU. And Ole Miss, Arkansas are kind of in that mucky middle where I think they could be 9-3, and I think that they could be 7-5. So that's
what
their
you're saying, though,
team.
Georgia could slip up in one of those games and still end up at 11-1, probably get the benefit of the doubt. That would be interesting. If they are the powerhouse, dominant team that we think talent-wise they are, but they've lost one and they get that strength of schedule strike against them.
Mm-hmm.
How much will the committee, how much talk will there be? Is, hey, you can't let – because remember what happened? Nick Saban was like, look, the odds makers say we'd be favored against all these other teams. Well, why aren't we in there? Because there was a lot of strength of schedule, all of these things that were sort of used against them, and they didn't get the nod.
And
I wonder if that could happen to Georgia, a 2-time defending champion.
And what was used against Alabama as well as Nick Saban's argument was we lost by 1 score to 2 really good teams.
Yeah.
But also what Nick Saban failed to mention was that they were playing really close against Texas and Texas A&M. So just as close as Alabama last season was 12-0, they were also as close to 8-4. So I think as far as Georgia is concerned, let's say I'll take the toughest game in their schedule at Tennessee. Let's say Tennessee beats Georgia. Georgia could still go to the SEC championship and win the SEC championship and still get into the college football playoff. So they could go 11-1, depending on
Let's
what
say
Tennessee
in theory,
does.
Tennessee loses to Alabama and slips up against one other team.
Yes. So that would leave Georgia the SEC East champion. They go to the SEC championship. Now, if they lose the SEC championship, they would not get in. But if Georgia goes 11-1 in the regular season, beats Alabama, LSU, A&M in the SEC championship, I think you're good as in.
So Georgia has a very easy schedule, you're saying?
Georgia
compared
has an
to
incredibly
what it could
easy
be.
schedule. Yes.
All right. You mentioned the quarterback continuity with the offensive coordinator. There's a lot of shakeup.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 2 or 3 quarterbacks that we haven't seen play that a casual fan would say, I know they're going to have a good quarterback. Like Bryce Young. You may not have known much about Bryce Young before you ever saw him play, but you kind of could say, I'm pretty sure Nick Saban's going to have an option at quarterback that's pretty good. And sure enough, Bryce Young was really good. So who are a couple guys we should watch that we haven't ever seen play before?
Devin Leary at Kentucky. He transferred in from NC State.
The successor to our man Will Levis.
The successor to Will Levis. Now, I don't think that Devin Leary is going to be a Heisman contender. But I do think that Devin Leary is going to be a good enough quarterback, especially in this Liam Cohen pro-style offense, to give a lot of teams a lot of fits. I wouldn't be surprised to see Devin Leary have a Will Levis 2021-esque kind of season where Kentucky went 10-2. They had a solid year. Will Levis looked solid. I mean, he's got 4 years of college football experience at NC State, and he got injured last season. But I think that this Devin Leary-Liam Cohen marriage is going to be really impressive, especially considering Kentucky's offensive line should be much improved. Kentucky's receivers are 1 year older. Will Levis kind of got the short end of the stick last year, having a really young receiving core. So Devin Leary is one at Kentucky that I expect to, is going to be fun to watch. And I expect him to be, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 3 quarterback in the SEC at the end of the season.
Okay. I noticed that, some schools announce their starting quarterback, some don't. Give me the lowdown on Georgia, because remember the whole saga of Stetson Bennett is he had to beat out like 4 guys every year, and they kept coming around like, do we have somebody better than Stetson Bennett? And the answer ended up being no. And then finally, Stetson Bennett as a 33-year-old college quarterback. Well, I mean, I know Derek is a huge fan, but
that's his guy.
Yeah, but now they don't have that security blanket. So what do they have at quarterback?
At Georgia?
Yeah.
So Carson Beck takes over the starting job, and there was a quarterback competition all summer long, but it was really one of those wink, wink, nudge, nudge, air quote, quarterback competitions, because I think everyone in that locker room and everyone outside of the locker room knew that it was going to be Carson Beck's job. And I have no idea what to expect with Carson Beck, but I think that with all of the tools around him, the receiving core, the line, just how much talent Georgia has on that team, I don't really know how you could fail. But I do think that Carson Beck is one of 2 quarterbacks in the SEC with the most pressure on them going into this season, the other being Joe Milton. Because Carson Beck is the successor to a quarterback that's going to have a statue erected in Athens, a quarterback that won 2 national championships. And we can joke all day long about how Stetson Bennett was a passenger on the team rather than the captain of that team, but the truth remains, he was the quarterback on back-to-back national championship teams. And Stetson Bennett, what I think he did best was step up in the biggest moments. That Stetson Bennett played his best games in the games that he needed to play his best games. Can Carson Beck do that? Can he elevate his game to a level against the Tennessees in the college football playoff? With a rather inexperienced quarterback, I don't want to call him young because he's been there for 3 years, but he doesn't have the amount of experience as a Stetson Bennett had. Can an inexperienced quarterback take his game to the next level when he needs to? I don't know. And that's the question about Carson Beck and this Georgia team. But Carson Beck, as a first-time starting quarterback, is coming in with national championship expectations. And that's not necessarily fair, but you're the starting quarterback at Georgia, and you get things that other quarterbacks don't get.
Do they have 2 or 3? Do they have a guy pushing him at all? Like, will there be a push to try somebody else if he doesn't look like he's grading out in that area?
They do, and I'll pull him up because I don't know anything about the rest of their quarterback room. I don't know the rest about their quarterback room just because
I'm
Carson
worried how
Beck
that
is so
plays.
good. Yeah.
Tell me about Alabama's quarterback situation, the post-Bryce Young. era here.
Alabama, it was the final team in the SEC to name a starting quarterback. They just named Jalen Milroe their starting quarterback for week 1 against MTSU. They just did that, I think, like 30 minutes ago. But Alabama had a quarterback competition that was playing out between 3 guys, but really 2 guys. Jalen Milroe, who returns from last season. If you watched the Alabama-Arkansas game last year, you saw Jalen Milroe come in when Bryce Young got hurt. So he comes in as kind of the incumbent. Ty Simpson comes in as a redshirt freshman, and it was really between those 2 guys and the Notre Dame transfer, Tyler Buchner. And I don't think anyone, whether you're an Alabama fan or not, really felt great about any of those guys because they all have talent, no doubt, but Jalen Milroe is more of your running quarterback. His passing ability needs time. Like, he's just not quite there. He's not up there with some of the best passers in the league. Ty Simpson, on the other hand, who he was competing against, he has a much stronger arm. He's much more accurate, but he doesn't have that explosive play ability that Jalen Milroe has. And I think the interesting thing about Alabama this year, let's go back 10, 15 years with Alabama. Every year, I could name 2, 3, 4, 5 offensive, explosive play guys. Last year, you could say, okay, well, Jahmyr Gibbs and Bryce Young. Years before, it's Devontae Smith. Oh, it's Mark Ingram. It's Julio Jones. Yeah. Oh, it's Jalen Waddle. We could go down the list of explosive playmakers at Alabama. I don't see that this year. Like, yes, they've got good players, but there's not that household name that you're like, oh, man, if my team doesn't double or triple that guy, we're in trouble. And those guys absolutely can break out. We just haven't seen that yet. So I think that they went with Jalen Milroe ultimately because he is your most explosive playmaker where it stands right now. But Nick Saban, he wants this to be a season-long quarterback battle. He wants it. Jalen Milroe's week 1 starter, but who's going to be the week 2 starter? Depends on how Jalen Milroe plays week 1. But I wouldn't be surprised to see both quarterbacks throughout this season.
Maybe a little less certainty with Alabama's offense than what we've seen in the past.
A lot less certainty.
All right, when we come back, let's focus on the teams in our state. Let's look at Tennessee and Vanderbilt.
Let's do it.
In the next segment.
Love it.
You went through the records. I want to see what you got through record-wise.
We will get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Hey, we are your racing station, 102.5 and 106.3. The Game is Nashville's home for NASCAR. Tune in this Sunday for the Cookout Southern 500 beginning at 4 p.m. NASCAR on 102.5 and 106.3. The Game is presented by O'Charlie's.
It's a long summer. But don't worry. Hockey will be back soon. You'll hear every slap shot, save, hit, and of course,
knocked down in front, rebound, and the score!
On your home for Smashville. 102.5 and 106.3, The Game, and the Game Nashville app. Is it October yet?
Caroline Fenton here for our friends over at Superbook Sports. Football season is right around the corner, and now is the time to place your preseason bets with Superbook in Tennessee. Superbook is the most trusted name in Vegas, and now you can use the promo code Caroline to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they'll match your first bet up to $250 with promo code Caroline. Will Tennessee win the division this year? Who's your pick for MVP? And which team will win it all in February? Don't sit on the sidelines. Win money this season with Superbook Sports. Simply download the Superbook Tennessee app, or you can visit superbook.com to place your wager today. Football, a $250 first bet bonus, and the Caroline promo code will make you do your own touchdown dance this season with Superbook Sports. So visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789.
Come try Calabria Brick Oven Pizzeria. Their pizza is cooked to perfection, but that's not all they're known for. Try one of their delicious appetizers, salads, fresh calzones, and they have a full bar and dessert. Calabria has been a Mount Juliet staple for 7 years now and has a new location in the heart of Goodlettsville off Long Hollow Pike. Come join the family at Calabria. After all, life's too short to eat bad pizza.
Men, at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, our urologists and providers have been helping guys with erectile dysfunction and other sexual health issues for years. And unlike some, at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, we take a comprehensive approach to your sexual health. Our sole focus is to treat ED and related conditions. ED can be affected by a bunch of things, from hormones, prostate issues, medical conditions, and even simply aging. The fact is, most guys experience it at some point in life. If you're suffering with ED, it's extremely important to see a provider that understands how your medical conditions, hormone levels, and other factors can impact your ability to have sex. That's why you should come to the Tennessee Men's Clinic, where we have treatments that are effective in nearly 90% of cases. I can't tell you how many guys we've seen that thought their situation was hopeless, only to be wildly surprised. So give us a call today. We'll do some blood work with a T-check and a medical consult to give you the best shot at success. Call 615-208-9090 or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. We have 2 offices, Midtown and Franklin.
Visit our website to learn more, including side effects. Treatments extra, results vary.
Attention taxpayers, ready for some bad news? With $80 billion in new funding from Congress, the IRS has launched their most aggressive hiring campaign ever to ramp up enforcement. If you're ignoring your taxes, don't delay another minute because your paycheck, your bank account, even your home or business could already be at risk. Now, here's the good news. Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm, can get to work immediately, helping to protect you from the IRS. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, their tax attorneys and licensed professionals are experts at resolving tax problems. Let them help determine if you qualify for the Fresh Start Initiative or other powerful IRS tax assistance programs. Take control. Call Optima Tax Relief now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
It's time to let your voice be heard. Nashville is headed to a runoff in the mayoral race on Thursday, September 14th. Stand up and be counted. Cromwell Media reminds you to get out and vote for the future of our city.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The patented key ingredient is something called Testofen, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text PEC to 321-321 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text PEC to 321-321. That's PEC to 321-321.
Saturday, college football is back as Tennessee takes on Virginia at Nissan Stadium here in Nashville. Our coverage begins at 11 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Hey, this is Pete Weber. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk. ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hey, tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits tomorrow for MTSU football. The Blue Raiders will kick off at 6:30 p.m. on the road against Alabama. Pre-game beginning at 5:30 p.m. You can hear all the coverage on the 93.3 Classic app and at 93.3classichits.com. Doing a full SEC preview. Got a little bit of a look at Florida last night, and that look was not very pretty.
Oh.
We got a look at Vanderbilt last weekend in Week 0, but we've got 12 SEC teams that have yet to start their Week 1 schedules.
I am really this will lead us into the Tennessee Vanderbilt part of this because obviously every year Tennessee and Vanderbilt, I don't know, I guess down the road it may not be every year, but every year Tennessee and Vanderbilt play Florida, and for different reasons. That's a big game.
Yeah.
Like Vanderbilt beat Florida last year. They haven't won in Gainesville too many times. I remember when James Franklin's team went down there and won. It was homecoming, which Vanderbilt tends to be the homecoming team a lot of times on the road. I don't know why that is.
I don't know either.
Why would you do that?
I think because everyone wants to come watch Vanderbilt
play. I enjoyed it, especially I grew up in Orlando, Florida. I went to high school. I didn't grow up there my whole childhood, but I moved there when I was 12. So my teenage years, Florida. And so I have a lot of Gators fans in my world, and they love to text me when Vanderbilt is the homecoming game down there. Hey, we're having a great time, Vanderbilt. So the one time I think it was 2013 13, Vanderbilt smoked Florida during homecoming, and that stadium was as empty as I've ever seen the Swamp.
Did Vanderbilt beat
at
Florida
halftime.
and Georgia that year?
Yes, they did. They beat Georgia at home, and I was at that game, and then they beat Florida in the Swamp. Yeah. James Franklin did some things.
He did.
He did some things.
That he did.
So, with that in mind, Florida, I think the tone down there, as you heard Mitch set the table, when we had Mitch Light on earlier this week, he goes, I'm really curious to see what Florida looks like against a quality team in Utah. Now, that was a hornet's nest last night. Great atmosphere. Loud. They kept going to Holly Rowe on the sideline with the decibel meter. Like, it was the real deal. That was a big-time atmosphere. Not a huge stadium, but every seat was full.
Utah is an underratedly difficult place to play.
And it's a quality team every year. They're always good.
They're always underrated, I think. I mean, Utah beat USC with a Heisman Trophy winner twice last year. They won back-to-back Pac-12 championships. And when we talk about the Pac-12, and I'm guilty of it too, we talk about USC, we talk about Oregon, we talk about Michael Penix Jr. at Washington. I'm guilty of not talking about Utah enough, and we are doing Utah and ourselves as college football fans a disservice by not talking about how stacked that team is.
Yes. So it's not that Florida lost that is bothersome, to me anyway. Like, I'm sure some Florida fans are like, hey, we should never lose.
To a
we should never
third-string
lose
quarterback?
But those guys could ball a little bit, those guys. But it was the way they looked, right? They had 2 number 3s on the field. By the way, why do we can't we come up with something where we don't have 2 number 3s, 2 number 6s, let's get over that.
It's awfully confusing.
It's stupid.
But
and
that's also
you get a penalty.
That's an indictment on Billy Napier.
That's what I'm getting at. They didn't look good. They had bad penalties on key plays. They looked disorganized at times. So it's the way you lose that is troublesome. And so that kind of leads me into, could Vanderbilt take advantage of that? I don't know if they're to that point yet. Obviously, they beat Florida last year, but that's going to be a big revenge game.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Tennessee-Florida tipping of the scales for, I don't know, what was the winning streak that Florida had over Tennessee? It was endless.
In the teens.
Yeah. So now it looks like Florida has slipped to a point where Tennessee, for the next several years, should have the upper hand on Florida. They have the opportunity to really take a stranglehold on that rivalry.
And I really wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to bet on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Florida looks better in the latter half of the season. But for Billy Napier being a second-year head coach and for that team to have as many veterans on it as it does, there is no excuse to look as sloppy as they did. I can give the benefit of the doubt in week 1, especially if it's a new head coach, especially if you have a new quarterback in the fold like Florida does with Graham Mertz.
Yeah, Nebraska, first-year head coach, they're going to be kicking themselves with some of the stupid stuff that beat them last night.
I always think back to the Florida State LSU game last year. That was almost like a textbook.
That was a wacky game.
Example of gross, just train wreck of football, of shooting yourself in the foot. And it was muffed punts, blocked kicks, blocked extra points, dumb penalties. And I could have chalked it up to, okay, it was, first year head coach with a lot of new players. There's no excuse for that for Florida. I can at least give Florida the benefit of the doubt of maybe later on in the season they'll start to figure things out. But Florida plays Tennessee week 3. Florida had a really tough time keeping up with Utah's receivers. But, by the way, Tennessee's receivers are better and faster than Utah's. So you don't give yourself a whole lot of time to figure your stuff out before you take on Tennessee. And, Florida gets the benefit of playing that game at home in the Swamp, which is not an easy place to play. But I think Tennessee rolls Florida week 3.
Okay. So let's get to then what you think the record of Tennessee is going to look like this year.
So I have Tennessee going 9-3. And I think I really struggled with 10-2 or 9-3. I had Tennessee. I felt confident enough having Tennessee losing at Alabama and at home against Georgia. It's really hard to beat Alabama 2 years in a row. That's why so few teams do it. It's also really hard to win at Bryant-Denny Stadium. So I have them losing to Alabama and Georgia because I have Georgia beating everyone by a large margin. But I also had Tennessee with one more slip up in there. So I put A&M at home as a loss. By that point, I think that everyone is going to buy into the fact that A&M is a much different team this year than they were last year. But if it's A&M or maybe it's Kentucky, I see Tennessee slipping up just one more time. And I think with A&M being one of those teams that they don't see every year, and with A&M having a much improved offense and Tennessee's defense maybe not being so great, I have Tennessee losing to A&M, but beating Virginia, Austin Peay, at Florida, UTSA, South Carolina, at Kentucky, UConn, at Missouri, and Vanderbilt.
All right. Now let's go, speaking of Vanderbilt, they've got Alabama A&M tomorrow. We talk to Clark Lee each week. I'll be going to the game tomorrow. I want to see if they can make some improvements here. I was actually pretty curious. The over-under in Vegas for wins for Vanderbilt is like 3.5.
Hammer the over.
You know, I feel okay about the over on that. But so when you went through game by game, we talked about this last week. The early part of their schedule is where they really need to get off to a good start. The latter part is a little more difficult. So when you went through it week by week, what did you come up with?
So I had Vanderbilt going 5-7, and I didn't feel good about it. And I think the one swing game on their schedule is Missouri. I have Vanderbilt going 3-0 in their first 3 games. I have them beating, 4-0 in their first 4 games. Obviously, they beat Hawaii, Alabama A&M, at Wake Forest, and at UNLV. I have them winning all 4 of those games. The only hitch in that I think could potentially be Wake Forest, but I think that Wake Forest is going to go through a little bit of a rebuilding period, losing Sam Hartman. So I have Vanderbilt winning all 4 of those games. I have them beating Florida. Florida just did not impress me in the slightest. And Florida's got some talent. They do, but so does Vanderbilt. And I think that Vanderbilt is a better coached team. So I have them beating Florida, but falling to Kentucky and Missouri. But I think Missouri is going to be the big swing game on that schedule. They host Missouri, so they get the advantage of playing them at home. I could see that game really going either way. But after beating Florida, I have Vanderbilt losing to Georgia, at Ole Miss, Auburn, and at South Carolina, and then finally at Tennessee.
So you have them winning 1 game in the league?
I have them winning 1 SEC game, but I really would not be surprised if it's 2 against Missouri.
It's interesting. I the formula in the past, if you could, and I thought for a long time Kentucky was sort of in the same boat. Mm-hmm. Before the days of you need to schedule at least 1 Power 5 team non-conference. Yeah. Those 2 teams, you would try to get your 4 non-conference wins if you could, and then scratch 2 league wins, and you got 6 right there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they can go to Wake Forest and win. That'll be an interesting game there. I want to see if they've closed the gap, because Wake Forest came in and beat them pretty soundly. Yeah. They had Sam Hartman, but they had a pretty good team last year. So I don't know. I don't know if 6 wins are there. I would love for them to get to 5 and then have a shot at the 6th. Yeah. But like you said, you need success early, I think, to really get on the boat there.
And another game that I think could be interesting, I'm high on them, but they might not end up being as good as I expect them to be, is Auburn.
That's a team. Auburn some years is way better than people thought they would be, and then they've had some years where they've just collapsed.
The Brian Harsin era was, I mean, when we look back at the history of Auburn football, that Brian Harsin era is going to be a stain. I mean, Brian Harsin didn't do anything to help that program. So Hugh Freeze is stepping into not the best situation. Found their starting quarterback in the transfer portal. They really built up their entire team through the transfer portal. So I think it's just in Hugh Freeze we trust for me. I have Auburn going 7-5. So not great, but probably better than most people expect them.
It's a good benchmark to see if Vanderbilt will be able to be right there, be competitive, more competitive against those middle-of-the-road teams, because that's where they're going to need to steal one, right? Beat somebody. That's what happened last year. Kentucky and Florida, probably they weren't at their best. Vanderbilt played well, and they stole 2 games that nobody thought they would win before the season started. I don't think anybody thought Vanderbilt was beating either one of those teams. Right. They beat them both. They need that again. They need to find a way to steal two league games, I think. Maybe 3. And
I see the path. It's not going to be easy.
No.
But I see the path. And I think
that's why I think some people say they could be better talent-wise, clearly, but still end up 3-9 or 4-8. It could happen.
Success is not linear in this league. It is not easy to win in the SEC. We will take it to the bank coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Whether it's college football,
Players might end up not going to Alabama or Georgia.
or the NFL,
I think that this team wins the AFC South.
Trevor knows. Join ESPN's Trevor Maddich every Tuesday at 4:30 on Stillman and Company as he gives his opinions on the latest from the gridiron.
I'm going to the team where I can get a ring.
Trevor Maddich brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, where experience matters, on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
We buy any car.
Selling your car by yourself can lead to some strange encounters.
So how many bodies does this car hold? Bodies? It's a 5-passenger car. Right. Passengers.
Don't deal with selling it yourself. Come to WeBuyAnyCar.com instead. It's easy. You get in, get out, and get paid at a fair price.
I sell mannequins. Oh, what'd you think? Nothing. Nothing at all.
Get your free online valuation now at
WeBuyAnyCar.com.
When getting the job done right is job one, you need construction equipment that's built right. From compact track loaders to the world's #1 selling compact excavator, the Kubota construction lineup features durable Kubota engines, more comfort, and the versatility to do it all and do it right. Visit your local Kubota dealer today. Go to KubotaUSA.com for full disclaimer.
Real estate investors, get ready for an incredible opportunity. D&M Development is thrilled to announce the Phase 1 presale of 16 non-owner occupied short-term rentals in Nashville's exclusive resort-style community, the New Cumberland. Nestled between Germantown and East Nashville, this exceptional location offers stunning views of the city and the Cumberland River. Each unit features spacious kitchens, 4 bedrooms, and 4 baths, providing the ultimate luxury experience for your guests. Resort-style pools and a wide range of amenities. Don't miss out on this exclusive investment chance. Visit thenewcumberland.com for more information and secure your spot in this extraordinary community.
The Parker Store at 1909 Nolensville Road in Nashville is the Parker Factory Authorized Store for your Parker hydraulic, pneumatic, water, and chemical hose needs. They stock metric tubing and hose connections to 42 millimeters in size, and they'll fabricate while you wait up to 6,000 PSI hydraulic hoses in a 2-inch size. Call the Parker Store at 615-248-8245 for all the Parker requirements you have. The Parker Store, 1909 Nolensville Road.
The sports talk doesn't end on Friday. Join Junie Riddle,
the guy that can come in and give us some good goal-scoring production,
and Nick Keiser,
another guy that I thought was interesting that got a 1-year deal.
Each Saturday morning at 9, it's Riddle and the Reporter on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Having some fun in the midday.
Okay, that's really fun.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase.
It's a good source of energy because it's live.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Comes the money. You can take that to the bank.
Here comes the money.
It is now time to take it to the bank with F&M Bank. Customer community F&M Bank, banking made easy on purpose. Less worry, more living, F&M Bank. Visit one of their 20 locations throughout Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky or online at myfmbank.com. So before we get to our take it to the banks of this week, Nick, first, let's recap. How did we do last week?
Well,
football on the brain.
last week, not last season, but last week, Caroline was no bueno.
Good.
Did the A.J. Swan to Will Shepard. Wasn't the first touchdown, though. Willy
Saw a whole lot of A.J. Swan to Will Shepard all game long, though.
Yep, did indeed. Willy, 100-yard rusher in the Vandy game, did not happen. I think they were far from it.
Yes, to say the least. And the first touchdown was a 21-yard run by Patrick Smith. I'm thinking first drive of the game, 21-yard run.
Woohoo!
We're on our way. Take it to the bank.
There was huge promise.
It didn't happen.
Let's see. D-Mase, 2 for 3. Will Shepard, 6 catches, at least 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. 100 yards did not happen.
Oh.
Finished with 68, I do believe. Someone can correct me if they want.
In the 60s, yeah. 63, 68, something like that.
So that's what happened there. And as for me, the broadcast to mention the stadium construction, I set the line at 6.5. I counted 4. So
you counted 4. Okay, that's what I was. So we have been debating all week of what the proper scoring system should be. So we have deemed Nick the judge, and we're going to give him a 10-point degree of difficulty success scale to work with. For example, that was an interesting, creative. So I think for style points, you should give yourself a point for that. For a unique take it to the bank. Announcers talking about something specific.
Chalk one up.
Give yourself a point for that.
Okay.
Give yourself a point.
All right. We'll chalk it up.
You deserve
Derek
that.
had a 3-tiered one, so that's tough. He hit the other 2, so he should get at least 6 points for that,
6
and
or
maybe
7.
a point for just the degree of difficulty.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
give him 7.
Caroline had the first TD,
That's
but that's
degree
a style
of difficulty. It's like diving.
3.
You have a degree of difficulty for every dive. You're familiar with diving?
But if you fail the dive, you don't get any points.
Okay, but I still think you should get something for your degree
At
of
least
difficulty.
You're being very nice, Willie. Thank you.
Well, I'm looking
I
out for
appreciate
myself
that.
because I'm coming back with, down the road, I'm going to be in this position.
Willie, I did look through
I
all
get
of
0.
your picks.
They should have had 100 yards.
I looked through
for
all your
that.
picks. I'm really pulling for you, man. I
got
am.
nothing. I'm not doing well.
I think, listen, as long as you stay away from the Mets, you're in the clear. You are in the clear.
I will not be taking the Mets to the bank anytime soon the rest of the season. I have made that pact with myself.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah.
Even when you pick against them.
It's also shaky. I don't like picking Vanderbilt, period. I don't like making picks. That's just sort of me. That's why I don't do well, I think. I don't have the mentality.
They're logical picks.
I
They
like
really
asking the questions. I like being the commissioner. I don't necessarily like making picks.
Hey,
But it makes it
But
so
I've got
much
to figure
more
it
fun
out.
to
Yeah,
watch the
I've
game.
got to adapt. I got to take it to the bank.
It's a new month, September. It's
a new month.
This is
This
your
is
month.
your
Willie.
month.
It's going to be my month.
It's Willie's
Football
month.
is in season. It is your month.
Okay.
Would anybody like to kick us off with our Take It to the Banks of the week?
Willie? You want a little time?
I need time.
Okay.
I need time.
Caroline, ladies first.
All right. I will take it to my Tigers. Sunday, game of the week, LSU, Florida State. I'm going to say that Florida State defensive tackle Jared Verse and LSU linebacker Harold Perkins each have at least 2 sacks on Sunday.
See, now I'm going to say degree of difficulty off the hop. I think
That's around.
that needs to be.
It's a high
7.
one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
7 or 8.
I like the high DD ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with that one. And if the class will allow me a second, the Vols score on their first drive of the game tomorrow.
Okay, so you're making sort of a 3-parter. You're breaking it up into 3 parts.
Yeah, I'll break it up into 3. Not necessarily a parlay, but
A round robin.
I'll say the first one is a group that if, let's say, Harold Perkins only gets 1 sack, then that is a no-go. But I think Tennessee scores on the very first drive of the game tomorrow. So that is my 1B.
So you're breaking 5 and 5, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Plus the degree of difficulty. So Nick is going to award something between 0 and 10.
I think that's a valid
each
8.
week.
That's a solid 8 right there.
Well, we'll see. We'll see
Yeah,
how it turns
if it does
out.
pan out.
Right. So you just give us a score after. So I get a 0 for
Okay.
last week. There's no question about it. We didn't. The Vanderbilt didn't come close to getting 100 yards.
No.
But as a team, let alone one guy. That's what I said.
Rushing
somebody,
yards?
Rushing yards. That was my take it to the bank.
Yeah.
Last week.
Especially in a rainy game.
That had nothing to do with it. Just couldn't block those guys. I don't know what's going on over there. That needs to be better this week.
You ready? Or you want me to go?
All right, I'm going to go back to the well.
Let's see it.
All right.
I will say Vanderbilt this week. I will say that they will have a true freshman score a touchdown. They will have a true
Ooh.
freshman score a touchdown this week.
Would we like to guess how it is scored?
No, but they have some guys that have been playing, and you heard Clark Lee talking about him. One scored last week, London Humphreys, who was a teammate of my son's coming up through. So we're close to the Humphreys family, so he's a candidate. They've got another kid, Cheryl from Brentwood Academy, I believe. He's getting some playing time at receiver. They have a running back in the rotation too, and I can't remember his name, but I'd say among the 3 of those guys, true freshman's going to get a TD tomorrow against Alabama A&M.
I like it.
All right.
I do. It's getting Willie back on the track.
All right.
But it's
feeling
got
the
to be one.
juice.
It's not broken up, so it's either all or nothing.
Okay.
Here. 10 or 0,
I like
probably.
it. It's just
Unless
like
you want to
Jeff-
give me like sympathy points or anything.
0. No, there's 0 sympathy.
No
here,
sympathy
Willie.
points.
No
No
sympathy.
There is no crying and take it to the bank.
Okay.
It's all about just getting back on track. I've been there, Willie. We both have been there. Now it's time to. It's football season. It's September. It's your month. As for me, I'm going to the well with Mississippi State. Caroline knows I am a Bulldog at heart.
Yep.
Going Will Rogers, over 250 yards passing. Jadam Wally, over 50 yards receiving and a touchdown. And to sprace it out a little bit, South Carolina gets the win versus North Carolina.
Ooh, I like that one. I like South Carolina.
Wait a minute, how many did you have in there? There's like 4 or 5 things.
So three things in the Mississippi State game and then South Carolina.
All right.
Wait,
so
did you say Will Rogers 250?
Mm-hmm.
Dare we bully Nick into bringing that number up? 250 in the air raid.
Listen, it's a new
450 or bust, Nick.
It's a new type of air raid without the great Mike
That is
Leach.
true. May he
So,
rest in peace.
I'm going to go with the 250. I know it's a little generous, but I got a lot of other stuff to
That is
well
true.
on here. So.
You bolstered it up a good bit.
Indeed.
Okay, now I think the key will be you scoring yourself fairly on this. Now, did D-Mase submit?
Hasn't sent me anything.
Okay, so
he's ghosted me, just like a lot of people.
So let's you as the
Should we
the
pick
judge,
for D-Mase?
Well, I don't know. Like I think we could find a way to get in touch with D-Mase in Boston. I could call my daughter Evie. She's up there too. Like
Yeah, are they getting lunch?
I don't know. Like DJ, Derek's son goes to Boston U, and then right down the road, Northeastern, that's where Evie goes.
Yeah.
So Aaron's up there. So we'll one way or another, we'll get in touch with D-Mase and get him to weigh in here for a take it to the bank.
We will. I'll text him or
It's
something.
a long weekend.
Yeah.
There's plenty of stuff to predict.
A lot.
Get him in there.
A lot
Should
of time.
we pick for D-Mase that New Mexico is going to beat Texas A&M?
Yes. Yes, we should.
Hey, he's not here to defend himself.
His underdog pick was Dion, so that's a
true.
long shot, but
That
we'll
is
see
true.
what happens.
Whole lot of love for Prime. That's going to do it for us today. Everyone have a great and safe Labor Day weekend. We'll be back Tuesday at 11 a.m.
Electronic.